one of anticipation. What? Tang Wire and Xiaosun tricked their friend, who was guarding the equipment graveyard on Earth, to come over to study the engineer ships and wormholes? They used Villander's token to acquire a ship, packed a lot of second-hand equipment, and are already on their way to Heaven Star. Fang Jing was stunned. Great. Tang Wire and Xiaosun should definitely be put on a list of exemplary figures and rewarded in front of the many captives. With this awareness, once they come over to take over for him, research is just about the engineer ships and wormholes, right? The engineers assisting you in researching the engineer ships. Hehe. So there's a good show to watch. Zhou Yuan chuckled ominously. Indeed. Fang Jing immediately responded, not wanting to be outdone. Heaven Star, originally the Engineer Square, has now been completely transformed. The coalition of this universe and Kyushu has already established a presence here, because humans can directly survive on this planet. The Research Institute only conducted a survey of the biological entities above, exterminating harmful microorganisms and species. The activity wasn't too intense. They just turned the whole planet over dozens of times. Now, the population on this planet is continuously increasing. Fang Jing followed Zhou Yuan to the air traffic control base on Heaven Star. Here, Zhu Lao, Zhou Ji, and others had already gathered. Seeing the two come to join the excitement, they were not surprised. Young people should stir things up a bit more. Zizi, this is a transmission from Mart. Damn it. Josen, if you're lying to me and there's no alien spacecraft here for research, I'll make sure to give you a hard time. And that fool, Tao, what's with all the second-hand equipment? If I hadn't acted quickly, I would have almost been discovered by that vampire secretary. That damn vampire. Usually dealing in second-hand equipment without a care, and now he won't let go of me just because I took a batch, as if I killed his mistress. I've reached the edge of the star system. Josen, you better have that damn alien spacecraft ready for me. By the way, why did you want me to bring Thomas and Jones over? On the communication channel, a somewhat rambling middle-aged male voice came through. It was Mart, the one who had been lured over by Josen and Tao. At this moment, he was cursing on the communication channel. Hearing his voice, everyone in the control room glanced, intentionally or not, at Josen and Tao. The two scientists, however, remained unfazed, their expressions unchanged. Of course, I brought my friend over. Why would I care about your looks? My skin is thicker than a city wall. Josen, are you wearing something underneath your clothes? Tao leaned closer to Josen, whispering after hearing the voice from the communicator. Wearing something? Why would I do that? Josen replied, puzzled, his eyes filled with confusion as he stared at his friend. Tao fell silent. He patted the still-dazed Josen on the shoulder and slowly shook his head. Brother, you're clueless. When Mart, Thomas, and Jones arrive, you'll understand why you need to wear something underneath. With a bewildered expression, Josen still hadn't grasped the seriousness of the situation. He remained in the dark. Mr. Josen, it's time for you to respond to your friend. A staff member at the control center approached Josen and whispered a few words. We have selected a location on a distant plane where there are no settlements, so they want to be suspicious. Good. Josen nodded slowly and followed the staff member to the control center. The scene suddenly fell silent. Josen pressed the communication button, took a deep breath, and spoke into the microphone. Mart, welcome to come over. I've sent the landing coordinates to you. Beside him, the staff member gave Josen an OK sign, indicating that the location information had been sent. You can land directly. We will send someone to pick you up. Tao quietly watched Josen communicate with Mart, swallowing hard. Brother, sorry about this. Mart, not knowing why Thomas and Jones were being brought over is not a big deal. You want to study the spacecraft, right? You'll find out later. Although I've put you in a tough spot, it's only halfway. Half a trap ISNTA trap. Chapter 252, Being Trapped. Outside the main sequence star system where the Paradise Star is located, an old cargo spacecraft had exited the jump mode and was slowly decelerating. Although the ship was somewhat old, it had decent speed and ample space. A small old man in the cockpit chuckled and patted his beer belly. Malt, Josen, and Tauer wouldn't be deceiving us, would they? Thomas shook his head, looking worriedly at the distant stars. We know Josen, his character is fine, but in the letter, Tauer gave me a somewhat sinister feeling. I mean, Tauer is quite calculating. He wouldn't be instigating Josen to trick us, would he? Next to them, Jones, who had worked with Tauer before, chimed in with a few sarcastic remarks. No way, those two couldn't possibly set me up. Malt shook his head confidently. However, as he said this, he cast a somewhat guilty glance at Thomas and Jones. He was sure they wouldn't betray him, but he couldn't be certain about those two. After all, that was Tauer we're talking about. Now that you've said that, we feel a bit more reassured, Jones said, seeing Malt's firm tone. At least we have Mr. Villain's endorsement. The spaceship is definitely real. The spaceship, although old, was still quite valuable. Mr. Villain wouldn't use such an expensive ship to trick them, right? No way. Surely no one is that bored. With that thought, Jones and Thomas completely relaxed. All right, I've received a response from Josen. The coordinates are in hand. You should be done with your doubts now. Malt pointed to his ear, his face showing excitement. Back on Earth, he had offended a big shot in the research community due to past mistakes. So even when Villain Company reinstated him, they merely assigned him to manage the equipment graveyard. His lifelong dream, like that of Tauer and Josen, was to continue working on spaceship propulsion systems. Because of this, he was relatively familiar with Josen and Tauer. Of course, he got along better with Josen. He always felt that Tauer was too cunning, and as an honest person, he didn't like mingling with someone so shrewd, fearing he might get sold out and then have to count the money for him. Fortunately, this time it was a letter from Josen. Josen was, well, still trustworthy. Alright, let us prepare to enter the orbit of Paradise Star. Malt laughed heartily and said, I can't wait to study the alien spaceship. Let that jerk Svril know that even if I offended him, I can still thrive. The old transport ship glided smoothly into the orbit of Paradise Star. Upon reaching the orbit, the three on board were astonished. They discovered that there were huge satellites floating in the orbit of Paradise Star. Instead of being cautious about this anomaly, the three felt relieved, because this satellite clearly had human construction, albeit with a somewhat outdated design. So what if it was old? Their spaceship was old too. As long as it was human-made, it indicated that there were human activities on this planet. As long as there are human activities, I'm worried that Jones and Towel might be taken hostage by technologically inferior extraterrestrials, which is why we brought a truckload of equipment. Thomas exhaled. As long as it's a creation of humanity. Suddenly, a strange noise emerged from the cockpit. Mom, is there a problem with the ship? Mart noticed the noise and quickly became alert. In space, such sounds are a dangerous sign. The quality inspection is complete, no abnormalities detected, the transport ship is functioning normally. The onboard AI paused for a few seconds before responding. The three of them didn't think much of it. A brief pause was probably just part of the ship's checks. However, in a corner they couldn't see, the scanning radar that had originally detected the terrain suddenly flickered and changed. The areas marked in green on the map, indicating squares and gathering spots, vanished. Scan the entire planet and confirm the positions of Prometheus and Cuvit. Mom. Jones still felt uneasy and ordered the AI to verify the ship's location. The holographic projection in the cockpit immediately changed. The ground profile of Heaven Star continuously shifted, and near the corner points, two ships suddenly appeared. The scan concluded, and Prometheus and Cuvit were found just 10 kilometers from the landing point. Jones let out a heavy sigh. It seemed there were no issues after all. Even the AI confirmed the positions of Prometheus and Cuvit. Both ships were still present, and there didn't seem to be any large gathering spots on Heaven Star. It appeared that only Towel and the others were here. Alright, since we VE confirmed everything is fine, let us land. Looking at this planet, which was as splendid and beautiful as Earth, and thinking about the precious alien ship relics above, Mart's hand trembled slightly. The engines of an extraterrestrial intelligent civilization. With a spaceship structure more advanced than humanity's, he was really going to see it. The large transport ship, carrying its cargo, descended rapidly. Although this ship's performance wasn't top-notch, it was still a former flagship product of the Velen Company, and in some respects, it was even more perfect than Prometheus. Especially in terms of ergonomic considerations during the landing phase, the three people in the cockpit didn't feel anything unusual at all. Suddenly, a cloud of dust passed, and the distinctive landing insignia of Velen Company lit up on the ground. Haha, our ride has arrived. Mart immediately began to land according to the landing sign, and the ship began to descend steadily. Something fell off, though. Where were the other two ships? Jones stood by the window, peering into the distance, but didn't see the ships. With the dust outside, it was strange to spot anything at a distance of 10 kilometers with the naked eye. Mart pointed to the radar showing the signals of the two ships, and turned to Jones with a light laugh. The young lady is too cautious. Alright, we're not far from the ground now. Landing gear extended, preparing to land. Clang, 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 clang. The spacecraft shook for a moment before successfully landing on the ground. Alright, let us get out of here. Mart thought of the alien ship and could hardly contain his excitement as he rushed towards the airlock. Jones and Thomas exchanged helpless glances and followed him. The three of them donned their protective suits and exited the spacecraft directly from the airlock. Not far away, several military green low-flying vehicles, kicking up thick smoke, headed straight for their target. Then, they came to a halt right in front of Mart and the others. I say, Jones, you guys at Kuwait still have these flying armored vehicles? Mart was just about to tease his friend Jones when he saw the people disembarking from the vehicle, and his voice gradually faded. A few soldiers clad in pitch-black exoskeletons, wielding electromagnetic rifles, and wearing some kind of masks, stepped down from the flying armored vehicle in unison. Witnessing this scene, Mart's expression gradually froze. The smile disappeared from his face. The Prometheus spacecraft and the Kuwait ship could never have brought these obviously military personnel. Mart instantly realized, damn it, Jones is setting him up. Chapter 253. The two of them can replace us in front of the massive transport ship. Mart's expression darkened, his breath momentarily halted. There were only the three of them on this outing, and seeing the glinting weapons in their hands made them feel compelled to board the vehicle. The flying armored vehicle flew straight in one direction, and to Mart, Jones, and Thomas's terror, the transport ship behind them automatically closed its airlock and took off after them. There was no doubt that the artificial intelligence had been hijacked and controlled by the other side. If that is the case, then the data they just had the AI verify was all fake. As this realization hit Mart, a chill ran down his spine, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The other side had planned this. That bastard Jones was an accomplice. Damn it, they had fallen for it. Lured to this godforsaken barren planet, and even brought a whole ship's worth of second-hand equipment. Although this equipment was second-hand, it was still top-notch from over a decade ago. These guys can't be rebels preparing to develop weapons against humanity here, right? As the three were lost in thought, they suddenly saw a massive platform slowly emerging in the distant valley outside the armored vehicle's window. This platform was originally supposed to be a square, but what shocked the three was that around the square, human buildings had been constructed. In the middle of the valley, there were numerous construction equipment and crowds bustling about. wearing hard hats and directing operations. There were actually human settlements. Mart had clearly searched before setting out. In the direction of Paradise Star, aside from Omega, a planned colonization planet, there were absolutely no human settlements. Not even the Prometheus and Kuwait ships had ever come here. So where did all these people come from? Moreover, that creature with a strange appearance is clearly taller than humans. No, it's not even of the same species as humans. Isn't this an alien? And the rebels are colluding with aliens. Mart stared wide-eyed, tilting his head to exchange glances with Jones and Thomas. All three of them seeing shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. At that moment, they felt like their end was near. The alien assisting with the equipment transfer clearly had established cooperation with these humans. It was over. They had boarded a pirate ship and become accomplices. Just as their thoughts surged, the flying armored vehicle slowly descended. Due to the presence of a transport ship, it landed directly near the control tower. Outside the control tower, a crowd had already emerged. Almost everyone looked at the slowly approaching spacecraft with a glimmer of excitement in their eyes. With this batch of equipment, combined with the assistance of scientists from the alien world, they were confident they could instantly narrow the gap with the humans from that world, and even surpass them significantly in terms of available technology. It's here, the things we need are here. Zhu murmured a couple of times. The items on the transport ship could enable them to leap forward, starting from a new point. However, the scientists from this universe and the world of Kyushu had complex expressions. They were happy that their technology would leap forward, sad because there was too much to learn. With their current knowledge, they would struggle to keep up with the brain-machine interfaces, as there was simply too much to absorb. The flying armored vehicle, carrying the transport ship, slowly landed on the ground. After searching Mart, Jones, and Thomas to ensure they were not carrying weapons, the three were brought down from the vehicle. As soon as they landed, a large crowd rushed towards them. The dense crowd startled Mart. He muttered in shock, "So many people, are they going to swallow us whole?" But in reality, the crowd completely ignored them and headed straight through their ranks. Their target was clear, the transport ship. To be specific, it was the second-hand equipment on the transport ship. "Mart, it's great that you're here." Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out in front of Mart. Upon hearing Josen's voice, Mart instantly became furious, his fists clenched and his teeth gritted as he stepped forward. In a flash, he was in front of the grinning Josen, his anger boiling over as he glared at him, raising his elbow and delivering an uppercut to his abdomen. "You bastard, I considered you a friend, and you actually dragged me into this mess." With a thud, Josen's abdomen took the hit, and he gasped in pain. Mart continued his onslaught, fueled by rage, and when he caught sight of the grinning Toei nearby, his anger surged even more. In another swift move, he approached Toei and delivered a straight punch to his chest, followed by a hook to his left rib. "Ah!" Toei cried out, collapsing to the ground. But his cry sounded oddly strange. It feels somewhat staged, doesn't it? Moreover, Mart seems to think that the impact on Tang Wire feels wrong, almost as if it hit a board. When did Tang Wire's body become so tough? Xiao Sun, who was lying on the ground, was genuinely in pain. However, on Tang Wire's face, there was a smirk that suggested he had anticipated this. "Xiao Sun, you're still too naive in this game. Now you understand why I needed to pad my clothes, right? Those 2 punches didn't hurt me at all. If it weren't for the fear of attracting too much hatred by standing, I would hardly have bothered to pretend." "Ahem, Mart, listen to my defense." Xiao Sun also realized what Tang Wire had said earlier. He spat at Tang Wire and struggled to stand up. Looking sincerely at Mart, "Although we did deceive you to some extent, you really can study alien spacecraft if you come over." "Really?" Mart calmed down at this moment, questioning amidst the soldiers around him who were on high alert. "Yes, come over." Tang Wire suddenly struggled to get up and whispered in Mart's ear. "They not only have alien spacecraft, but also wormholes." "Wormholes?" Mart admitted that he had been a bit loud just now. "What rebels? These people are human too, right? So what if they collude with aliens? After all, he is working under humans. Those are wormholes. We brought you here for this reason. This equipment is for making achievements. Once we achieve something, we can be transferred to other departments to study spacecraft and wormholes." Seeing that Mart was intrigued, Tang Wire quickly added fuel to the fire. "Don't say that your brothers are putting you in a difficult position. Haven't you always wanted to study more advanced spacecraft? Isn't this the opportunity? They can let me research this right from the start." Mart was somewhat skeptical. "That's why I asked you to bring Jones and Thomas along. They can cover for us." After Tang Wire finished speaking, he patted Mart heavily on the shoulder. "So that is how it is." With Tang Wire saying this, the resentment in his heart eased a bit. It turns out the ones being set up weren't him, but Jones and Thomas. "That is fine then. Does that mean I can happily research alien civilization as spacecraft now?" As for still doubting whether the other side has alien spacecraft, of course. Didn't you see that bald alien? If there are aliens, how could there not be alien spacecraft? Meanwhile, Jones and Thomas were left confused. Chapter 254, Exposed. In the alien world, the entanglements on Mart's side can only be resolved by themselves. After all, they are all friends. Let us clarify things. Since they are here, there is no way to let them go. Persuade them with reason and emotion. The other party should always be receptive. Now, the focus should be on the equipment on the transport ship. Opening the hatch of the transport ship, a group of people rushed into the cargo hold without hesitation, only to be dazzled by the equipment before them. A complete set of machine processing equipment. There were also ultra-precision printing devices that could be used for machining. This is a casting pump made of special materials, an atomic knife machine tool, I can't believe such equipment exists here. A shaft distance measuring device. Production equipment for measuring instruments. The equipment on the transport ship has truly dazzled many scientists. Based on the knowledge they learned from the captured beings of another world. These devices are no more than 10 years away from the current beings. Moreover, what Malti has brought this time are all basic processing equipment. With these industrial machines and the accompanying knowledge, this universe and the world of JoJo can achieve a qualitative leap. This time, Tang Wire and Xiao Sun did a great job. After inspecting the equipment piled up in the yard, even in robot form, Old Zhu couldn't help but laugh out loud. They both wanted to study the engineer spaceship, right? Zhou Zhe, standing aside, also couldn't hide his joy and added, and that Malti. Alright. These three should be sent directly to the underground of JoJo United University to follow the research on the engineer spaceship. Old Zhu waved his hand and said cheerfully, also, the wormhole, didn't they want to take a look? Approved. This is really a big deal. With this equipment, given time, can't they create faster-than-light spaceships? Old Zhu now wants to support Tang Wire, Xiao Sun, and Malti. This is truly a living treasure. They sent a full set of equipment. And soon they would be able to produce divine gear. Behind Feng Jing, hearing the names and functions of the equipment reported by the registrar, he also smacked his lips. Malti is quite capable, huh? Holding the token from Villain. He must have brought over an entire batch of old equipment from Villain Company. Oh, and he even added a transport ship. Outside the spaceship, Tang Wire and Xiao Sun also explained everything to Malti. As for Jones and Thomas, they were too excited and happy, and were pulled aside to calm down. When they were taken away, the fiery looks they shot at the three were intense. Jones and Thomas. Malti, how could you betray us so quickly? You're really something. I told you. Xiao Sun, how could you possibly set me up? He heavily patted Xiao Sun on the shoulder. Old Zhu's orders had reached their ears, and once it was confirmed that they could indeed study the alien spaceship and wormhole, Malti's swift betrayal was without hesitation. As for going back to Earth to continue being the equipment graveyard manager, after patting Xiao Sun's shoulder, he turned to Tang Wire, hesitated for a moment, and finally reached out to pat him. At least you still have a conscience, not really putting your old friend in a dead end. Bang! He patted Tang Wire's shoulder heavily. Tang Wire was just about to say a few words when a crisp sound of something falling to the ground was heard. The three of them looked down together. They saw several pieces of carbon fiber softboards falling out of Tang Wire's clothes. 1, 2, 3. Tang Wire noticed, and his expression instantly changed. Oh no, it's exposed. Great. Malti looked down, and his expression immediately became friendly. Very good, very good. You're really trying to play tricks here, aren't you? You're quite good at hiding. Take this. A quarter of an hour later. The bruised figure on the ground was in pain, clutching his aching abdomen, on the verge of tears. So close to getting away with it. But unexpectedly, at the most critical moment, he was exposed. And then he had to face a flurry of punches. What was supposed to be just a couple of hits turned into a severe beating. You must not learn from him. Looking at the battered figure, the other felt a sense of relief. Alright, let us get ready to leave. Over here, the transport ship has finished inspection, and any potential dangers have been eliminated. The ship also lacks a positioning system. A signal was given, and a few people immediately entered the cockpit. The ship shook and headed towards the distant gathering point. This transport ship would directly pass through the transit gate and dock in this universe. Pack it up and take it away. Seeing that the ship was entirely secured, many scientists were filled with joy. This ship was a treasure trove. Once back, they could install it and immediately start working, utilizing these processing devices to replicate all these tools. Indeed, the equipment on the transport ship was the industrial mother machine. They could produce themselves. This was also the reason for their excitement upon the arrival of this shipment. With these items, the entire foundation of their industry would be thoroughly transformed. In the crowd, one keenly noticed the excitement in the eyes of several scientists from this universe, recalling the same state they had when interacting with the scientists from the wandering planet. It was a kind of ecstasy, a euphoric excitement about the industrial leap. In a massive transit space beneath the Mars base in this universe. After the arrival of the transport ship, the accompanying scientists returned as well. The battered figure and his companions still had one last task to complete regarding their research. That was to teach the scientists from this universe and the other realm how to assemble and use these devices, successfully completing the replication of these tools. He gladly accepted this task. After all, it was much easier than making equipment by hand as he had done before. He had been in this field for many years and was extremely familiar with the equipment from a decade ago. They could accomplish this. Quickly, be careful while unloading. Take it easy. That robot, handle it gently. If it gets even a slight bump, I'll have you melt it. Gently peel off the anti-static and dust-proof films. Don't use force. Easy, easy, easy. In an instant, the scientists here transformed into two extremes. One group was agitated while the other was gentle. When a robot moved just a bit too quickly, a dozen scientists nearly rushed over to dismantle it. However, when the time came for the items to be placed on the ground, they spoke softly and gently, lowering both their voices and their bodies. In the end, more than a dozen people were crouched down, their eyes fixed intently on the gap between the box and the ground. Only when the box was gently placed on the ground did they let out a heavy sigh of relief. This equipment, even a slight bump. No scientist present could bear the responsibility. Even if we don't count the responsibility, they would blame themselves to the point of despair. After all, there was no second friend of Xiao Sun to guard the equipment graveyard. They wanted to obtain the next batch of equipment. But even with the presence of a certain individual, it wouldn't be easy. So they had to be extra cautious. Chapter 255. What? A Lightspeed engine. In this universe. On Mars, in the city of Eternal Sunday. As the first city on Mars, with a jurisdiction area of 1 million square kilometers, the residents here have a wide range of living options. Lucky Zhang Tao directly chose a piece of land by the lake. Then, after making a phone call, a robotic construction team built the house he described in just one day. A small villa by the lake, complete with a backyard. Thus, he had completely rid himself of the awkward period of using the ground as a bed and the sky as a blanket. Not just him. The first 3 batches of residents had already settled in, while the 4th batch would arrive in a few days. A new day begins with breakfast. Waking up early, he turned on the radio and started making breakfast. After finishing his meal, he watered the flowers in the backyard and then exercised for half an hour. With all these activities completed, there was still plenty of time before work at 9 o'clock. Buzzing. The Mars Voice morning report reminded. The weather committee of the city of Eternal Sun has decided that due to the prolonged sunny weather, the atmospheric moisture content near the city of Eternal Sun has dropped below a suitable level for humans, so there will be organized rainfall today. All residents are advised to carry rain gear when going out. Yes. We have released 56 species of modified fish into the hundreds of lakes in the city of Eternal Sun. Residents can go with friends during their free time on weekends to enjoy the tender taste of these fish. Listening to the broadcast, while flipping through the work manual for the day, Zhang Tao found that early morning listening to the Mars Voice had become a habit for the residents of the city of Eternal Sun. This was crucial because the weather for the day would be announced here first. More importantly, they had enough time to relax and listen to the broadcast. Brewing a cup of coffee, Zhang Tao hummed a little tune while flipping through the pages. The radio continued. The Mars Armed Forces reminded mining ships in the FG zone that the Space Army will be testing Lightspeed engine equipment in this area soon. So please avoid mining in that zone. After taking a sip of coffee, Zhang Tao suddenly spat it out in surprise. He looked up at the distant radio, his eyes wide open, and exclaimed in astonishment. What did they just say? Testing Lightspeed engine equipment? He quickly looked at his phone to check the time, 2029. Zhang Tao rubbed his eyes to confirm he wasn't mistaken. He stood there muttering softly. I didn't time travel. So how is it suddenly about Lightspeed engines? Not only him, at the same time, the Mars Voice broadcast set up on Earth also reported the same content. Countless people on Earth doubted whether they had misheard. What is this? No. How long has it been since you left Earth? And suddenly there's a Lightspeed engine. Is this thing what we understand as a Lightspeed engine? The internet was instantly buzzing. This morning, I was originally preparing to adapt to life in Eternal Day City. But then this astonishing news broke out. Someone upstairs must be dreaming, and didn't he get the news? Wake him up with a splash of cold water. What the heck, a Lightspeed engine? Is it what we think it is? The space military experiment must be what we're thinking. No. I thought we hadn't collectively crossed over. How did we suddenly break through? Cough, cough. It's unspeakable. Ever since the rabbit landed on the moon, the speed of technological breakthroughs has indeed been a bit terrifying to think about. Area 51 is actually in the east? Quick, get the transformers from the dark side of the moon out. To be honest, they must have discovered something, right? Experimental Lightspeed equipment can't be kept secret. And of course, with the strength of the great power in the east, there's no need to hide it anymore. I'm the experimental Lightspeed engine. What can you do about it? Having strength is being bold. When this news reached the international organization, the atmosphere instantly froze. Representatives from other nations looked at the delegate from the great power in the east, their mouths twitching. No, brother, what are you trying to do? Cough, Mr. Chen, what do you think about the existence of extraterrestrial life sites on Earth? Finally unable to hold back, a representative from a certain alliance spoke up. I sat back and watched. Delegate Chen chuckled and made a joke. However, at that moment, no one could laugh. Representatives from over 100 countries had blank faces, unsure of what to do. Only the camel, who often interacted with the great power in the east, instantly understood and began to fake a smile. Ha 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 ha. While laughing, the camel representative raised a hand to remind others. Laugh, everyone laugh. Ha 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 ha. Thus, the entire meeting room of the international organization unexpectedly turned into a venue for fake laughter. The laughter was sparse, and the atmosphere was indeed extremely strange. Cough. Delegate Chen cleared his throat twice, wondering why these representatives had no sense of humor at all. All right. As he spoke, the entire venue instantly quieted down, to the point where a pin drop could be heard. No one dared to speak up now. I will now officially answer the question posed by the representative from the certain alliance regarding whether there are extraterrestrial civilization sites on Earth. Delegate Chen deliberately paused while speaking. The atmosphere in the room instantly froze. Everyone licked their somewhat dry lips, eagerly awaiting his answer. My answer is, at least within the borders of the great power in the east, nothing has been found. After Delegate Chen answered, he revealed a mysterious smile. What he said was indeed a fact. There is nothing within the borders of the great power in the east. However, on Mars, there is something that passes through the space gate. Hearing his answer, and looking at his expression, your smile, combined with what you said, how could we not be a bit skeptical? The scene erupted in chaos. Representative Chun exclaimed, no way, how is that possible? Where did the Lightspeed engine come from? He insisted, you just have to believe it. They must have mastered some relics of extraterrestrial civilizations. Damn, why is it them who have mastered it? A Lightspeed engine. That's Lightspeed. This morning, representatives from various nations on Earth, who were secretly listening to the voice of Mars, also spat out their coffee in shock. What on earth? The steam engine is still mainstream on Earth. The internal combustion engine is still prevalent outside the eastern region, and rockets are still using chemical fuel. And you come up with a lightspeed engine? And experiments. It's not that we're lagging behind. It's you who has the problem. Your advancements are too extreme. A small step forward is understandable, but this giant leap has surpassed several levels of civilization. My goodness, a lightspeed engine has emerged. What's next? Are you going to develop superluminal travel and conquer the galaxy? No, World War II just ended over 80 years ago. It's 2029, not 2999. When this news broke this morning, some representatives thought their ears were malfunctioning, but upon checking, it turned out it wasn't an ear problem. It's the Eastern Power. There's something off with you. You have a problem. Chapter 256. It's happening. Mars, Node Island, underground section. Numerous scientists from Project 237 gathered together, including Tang Wire, Xiao Sun, and Malti. The achievements of the three were enough to deserve this status. Old Zhu. We have completed the replication of the equipment and immediately started tackling the challenges of the superluminal spacecraft, and we have already achieved outstanding results. The spacecraft dynamics expert spoke with great excitement. Although there is still some distance to cover before achieving superluminal travel, our scientists have fully grasped the principles and specific equipment involved. The prerequisite for developing our own superluminal spacecraft is to thoroughly understand the technology of the other party. With their equipment, theoretically, directly replicating their spacecraft wouldn't be a problem. However, what this universe wants is never just to replicate equipment, but to completely understand the technology of the other side and begin to develop based on their technology. Simply put, it means standing on their shoulders and continuing to climb higher. Very good, this batch of equipment has arrived just in time. Old Zhu nodded, but his gaze was fixed on the holographic projection behind the dynamics expert. Behind him was a projection of the FG area surrounding Mars. In the projection, a familiar spacecraft was docked. That was the transport ship that Malti had brought over. Although this ship was old, it still had all its functions intact. It was precisely because of this spacecraft that the expert team abandoned the idea of using the engineer clan's ship. Fang Jing let out a breath, his eyes sparkling as he looked at the projection. This spacecraft, having undergone upgrades and modifications, would serve as his vehicle to the interstellar dust zone 2 light-years away. That's right, it's the opening of the interstellar dust zone to activate the new world. Old Zhu had been planning this for a long time. Although there were many plans, unexpected events came faster than anticipated. In the end, this transport ship became the first choice. Xiao Fang, although not in a hurry to go, also needed to ensure the safety tests of the spaceship were in place. Old Zhu stood beside Fang Jing, his voice very soft. I know that the 2 backup planets of the Pacific Rim Pioneer clan haven't even started reading yet. Just preparing a backup for the new world plan will suffice. Fang Jing was not in a rush either. He was enjoying himself at the base, eating, drinking, and having fun. The technological strength of the great Eastern nation in this universe was visibly improving at a terrifying speed. He wasn't anxious at all. He wanted to digest things well and boost productivity first. Moreover, he hadn't even checked the 2 planets with stored genetic codes of the Pioneer clan near the Pacific Rim wormhole. There were so many things to do that he simply couldn't be distracted. At this time, opening the new world was irrelevant to Fang Jing. Some scientists involved in Project 237 would truly be exhausted. Considering the lives of these precious scientists, it was better to take it slow. However, as Old Zhu said, it could be delayed, but preparations must be made. The excellent tradition of the great Eastern nation is to never engage in an unprepared battle, and this must be vigorously promoted. Well, I'm glad you understand. The experiment is about to begin. Old Zhu nodded slowly. Upon hearing the reminder, Fang Jing immediately shifted his focus. The spaceship with superluminal capabilities was officially starting its first flight attempt in this universe. The transport ship from the alien world had no issues operating in this universe. On Mars, only simple safety tests were conducted at light speed. Even such a simple test attracted spectators. Indeed, the drivers of the mining ships had nothing to do and gathered at the edge of the no-fly zone. It was reminiscent of the crowds around the Changfei outer station in the past. The lightspeed engine, like the previous J-20, caught the attention of everyone in the world the moment it emerged. Then, the transport ship in a mild jump state traveled at light speed and reached near Pluto in less than 18 minutes. And this was just at light speed. With the superluminal spaceship, this universe instantly shifted its focus from star systems to the entire galaxy. However, it wasn't enough. The superluminal communication system and various weapons must be in place before unleashing the beasts. On the Pioneer planet in the Pacific Rim, after so long, the dust raised across the planet had slowly settled. With the help of the fleet, the planet had gradually restored its original appearance. And the advantageous plant species from Earth had also taken over the entire planet. He-Fan stood on the flagship's command platform, looking at the once again green planet, a faint smile appearing on his lips. Captain, our fleet is frantically mining the resources of this stellar system. The Pioneer clan has truly left us a huge gift. The intelligence officer's face was full of excitement. Indeed, He-Fan tilted his head and looked at the holographic projection in front of him, a smile lingering on his face. The projection displayed the star map of the star system where the pioneers were located, a sun-like star, along with nearly 100 planets within the system. Indeed, It was only after the fleet had thoroughly bombarded the Pioneers' planets that they had the opportunity to observe the entire star system. Then, they discovered something astonishing. The number of asteroids within the entire star system was highly unusual. There were a full 100 of them. What thrilled them even more was that after sending a reconnaissance team to investigate the nearby planets, they concluded that almost all of these planets were backup resource planets for the Pioneers. In other words, out of the entire star system, the other 97 planets were all resource-rich. There were planets rich in gold, planets abundant in helium-3, and planets containing various rare earth elements. Among them, the planet rich in helium-3 was particularly remarkable, being 100 times the size of the moon, with reserves that were hundreds of thousands of times greater than those on the moon. When the commander He Fan received this news, his legs went weak, nearly causing him to stumble. This was truly a windfall. So many mines, they could hardly keep track. This was the Pioneers' treasure trove. Immediately, some idle ships transformed into mining vessels, crazily extracting resources. However, the mining equipment was already smoking, and within the entire star system, they hadn't even finished extracting a trillionth of the resources. They were digging up the very treasure the Pioneers had prepared for themselves. It can only be said that it was no surprise they were a once mighty civilization that spanned 2 star systems. Although they had fallen to such a state, a dying camel is still bigger than a horse. The Pioneers were still incredibly wealthy. However, in the end, all these resources would benefit this universe. With so many resource planets, the overall leader of the 237 plan, Old Zhu, finally thought of how the Eastern nation in the Pacific Rim could help them. Well, they could assist in mining. The Pacific Rim world would become a purely resource-rich world in the future. The resources that the Pioneers had left for their resurgence would become a significant boost for humanity, at least in the short term. They wouldn't have to worry about minerals. Chapter 257. Dreams shattered in the southwestern hinterland of the Eastern nation within the Pacific Rim, amidst a certain mountain forest. A middle-aged man named Ilong, dressed in climbing gear and carrying a backpack, sighed as he stretched his neck to look into the distance, occasionally glancing down at his watch. He had the features of an Asian but possessed striking blue eyes. This watch was not just an ordinary one. It displayed not only the time, but also the coordinates. He was not far from his target, the spatial gate. The man furrowed his brow, clenched his fist, aligned his compass with the direction, and continued forward. His task was quite simple. Approach the spatial gate for observation. The countries of the Pacific Rim world had not fully compromised. They can only submit to the powerful country in the parallel universe, but after long contemplation, they thought, since there is a powerful country in the parallel universe, what about their own country in that universe? Especially across the ocean, if the powerful country in the parallel universe is so strong, then their own country must be even stronger. Thus, this spy was sent. His sole mission is to find a way to approach the spatial gateway and investigate the situation nearby. If possible, to make contact with the parallel universe's counterpart. Indeed, watching the rapidly advancing technology of the Pacific Rim nation with the help of the powerful country in the parallel universe, no country can help but envy them. So, if they take a risky move, perhaps they really could connect with their parallel universe counterpart, and their situation wouldn't be so difficult. There are still 30 kilometers to the satellite observation area. Ilong looked through the telescope at the endless flatland, feeling a deep shock. According to satellite images, more than a year ago, this was still a hilly area with an average altitude of 800 meters. However, the dense hills have vanished, leaving behind an enormous flatland whose area is unknown. In places not visible through the telescope, there are faint signs of spacecraft taking off. This is the place. Ilong took a deep breath, ready to quicken his pace and search for an opportunity through the forest. He will definitely make contact with the parallel universe's counterpart. In the distance, at the dispatch center, Qing Yuan watched Ilong's figure on the screen of the laser thermal imaging device, chuckling softly. So, Captain, shall we catch him? Beside him, the deputy captain was somewhat excited. Wow. After centuries, this is the first spy to dare approach the spatial gateway. This guy's guts. Foreigners in this world have guts. No hurry. They discovered him right after he entered the mountains. Qing Yuan shook his head and explained to the deputy captain. The assistant has already connected to this world's network via fiber optics. When they plotted this plan, we had already detected it. With the assistant's AI computing power, monitoring everyone on this planet is a piece of cake, without even using a fraction of its processing capability. So, as long as it's a connected area in the Pacific Rim, it's all under the control of Project 237. Their little schemes were naturally discovered without any effort. What does that mean? The deputy captain asked in confusion, thinking that if it were him, he would have directly sent someone to capture Ilong. Of course, to kill. One must first break their spirit. Qing Yuan squinted his eyes and smirked. We will deliberately let out some flaws, allowing them to intercept a bit of real information from this universe. Let them see what their so-called hope, the parallel universe's counterpart, is really like. And once he sends the information back, we will capture him. Peering at the spatial gateway, this account must be settled properly. The deputy captain widened his eyes and grinned. Cruel. This is truly cruel. Not only breaking their spirit, but also killing. In the mountainous region of the southwest, Ilong had been wandering for 3 to 4 days. He quietly held up a signal collector in the woods, constantly searching for opportunities. He firmly believed that there are no secrets that cannot be uncovered. Perhaps he had no way to infiltrate the military base surrounded by high walls. But this vast square was completely exposed. The arrogance of a certain major power in the Eastern Parallel Universe was evident, with signal fluctuations directly revealing their presence. There was no attempt at concealment whatsoever. Of course, Ailong wouldn't understand that this was a manifestation of absolute confidence in their technology. With quantum key distribution, if they didn't want to, even the most advanced entities around the Pacific wouldn't be able to decipher their information for a lifetime. Such confidence. Beep beep beep. The radio signals in his earpiece were continuously flashing. All of this was meaningless information with no real value. Nonetheless, Ailong remained here, because he saw hope. This was a supply station for the major power in the Eastern Parallel Universe, with a small presence of personnel from the Parallel Universe, establishing some connection. These connections were mainly through radio waves. A definite flaw, hiding on the mountaintop. Ailong pointed the device's antenna at the supply station and entered a long wait. Meanwhile, he was frantically flipping through a codebook. The internal codebook of the major power was right here. Ailong's eyes lit up. This was data he had cracked from the backdoor of a printer chip a few years ago, a type of universal decryption code used internally by the major power. The key was that this decryption was extremely covert. Even the major power had no idea that the imported printer sent for repair had a backdoor. This was one of the recent successful infiltrations into the major power. Opening the codebook, Ailong carefully flipped through the pages. In his ears, the continuous radio signals kept ringing. Until at one moment, a long beep sounded in his earpiece. The familiar voice instantly cleared Ailong's mind, revitalizing him. The opportunity had arrived. The frequency of this signal fluctuation had been decoded. It was a long code that matched the codebook. Ailong's eyes widened as he quickly recorded the information of the long code. When the information became decipherable, Ailong was ecstatic. All he had to do next was decode this string of information according to the codebook. This supply point was truly his treasure. Filled with joy, Ailong immediately crouched in a depression at the mountaintop, using dense vegetation as cover, and began the decoding process. However, when he finally pieced together the complete message, the surprise on Ailong's face instantly froze. Due to the information being decrypted, there was a series of news reports from a parallel universe, one of which completely shattered Ailong's defenses. A major nation in the East had issued the regulations for navigation within the solar system, provoking protests from various countries on Earth. Forces represented by a certain alliance condemned this as the beginning of the East's monopoly over the solar system. Although various sectors and countries had yet to move beyond chemical rockets, the situation remained unchanged. Ailong swallowed hard and looked through the telescope at the spacecraft soaring into the sky. Watching the deep blue glow behind the ship, he was momentarily speechless. How could this be possible? The East in this parallel universe was so advanced, while other countries remained indigenous to Earth? This universe seemed somewhat distorted. Ailong's dreams shattered, collapsing completely, in a way that couldn't even be pieced back together. Chapter 258. You really are timing it right in the southwestern hinterland. Ailong hid in a depression at the mountaintop, trembling as he pressed the transmitter. The dream was shattered. The parallel universe's situation mirrored his own world, tightly suppressed. In this scenario, how could one save themselves? Perhaps the parallel universe was too fearful to even make a sound. After staying here for an hour, Ailong finally calmed down. No matter what, his task was complete. He had decrypted some information from the other side of the space gate. Now, it was time to escape. From the moment he climbed this peak, Ailong had felt something was off, as if he was being watched. However, after such a long time without incident, he had relaxed a bit. But just as he finished decrypting the information, that feeling returned, and it grew stronger. Go. Without hesitation, Ailong slid down the mountain. After he left, near the base of the mountain, two soldiers in camouflage stealthily moved from the bushes, fixated on his retreating figure. Ailong traveled 40 kilometers and finally stopped in a valley. Setting up the transmitter, he was about to locate the satellite and send a signal. He wondered what kind of repercussions this signal would provoke. Ailong sighed deeply. He had thought that the parallel universe's situation would not be weak. If he could make contact, it might suppress the momentum of the rising Eastern power. What he never expected was that the other side was also in a dire situation. Beep, beep, beep. The transmitter connected to the satellite began to operate. A few minutes later, the message was sent, and Ailong packed his things, preparing to flee. Just then, a cold voice rang out behind him. Don't move. Raise your hands and kneel on the ground. Ailong, you are under arrest. Upon hearing this voice, Ailong's face went pale. Instinctively, he struggled to dive into the nearby bushes, but the soldiers behind him would not allow that. They were already within 7 steps of him. Just as he lifted his foot, one soldier, quick and decisive, aimed for his calf and pulled the trigger. Bang! The long-awaited sound of gunfire echoed. The spinning bullet instantly pierced Ailong's calf. The soldier's aim was precise. The bullet angled through the leg, causing a fracture at most, but not splitting it in two. He grimaced in pain and collapsed onto the gravel, the sharp stones leaving him bloodied. Still trying to run, the soldier who fired let out a cold snort. 7 steps away, the gun is fast. Within 7 steps, it's both accurate and quick. Look, you haven't even lifted your leg, and I already know where you're trying to run. Cuff him, quickly stop the bleeding, don't let him die from blood loss. This is a second-class merit medal. 2 soldiers, following the mission brief, took photographs for documentation and then moved both the person and his equipment away. This is a merit. At the same time, at the United Nations in the Pacific Rim, the representative from the Eastern Power quietly approached the representative from another country, smiling as he handed over two freshly printed photos. The photos, of course, depicted Ailong lying on the ground in a pitiful state. What is this? I don't understand. The representative's pupils slightly contracted, his hand tightening under the table, cold sweat instantly forming on his back. However, even so, he quickly reacted, shaking his head in denial. What is this? I don't know, it's not me. Mr. Toyak, you don't understand, and I don't understand either. Chen Jiming smiled gently, shook his head at Toyak, then his expression turned serious as he whispered, but some people don't need to understand. They are very angry about this matter. And whether you understand or not, be prepared to pay the price. Since Toyak was playing a guessing game with him, Chen Jiming grinned. Why not play along? As for who they were referring to, Toyak immediately realized, his face turning pale. It could only be the Eastern Power from the parallel universe. Chen Jiming handed over the photos and then ignored Toyak. The situation was already different. Before the Eastern Power from the parallel universe arrived, they had suffered from the other country. Now that the Eastern Power from this parallel universe was here, would they still suffer? That would make the people from the original universe come over for nothing. Hey, you're getting a little too bold. Sneaking in, right? Intercepting signals, right? Still wanting to contact the parallel universe? This time, there will be no leniency. The hands that reach over will not only be broken, but will also be pulled over for a beating. The Pacific in the early morning, approaching winter, was so calm. However, while the ocean was tranquil, for certain fleets from the other country, the world was anything but peaceful. Because all military bases on the islands in the Pacific received the same message. You are ordered to immediately withdraw from the base and return to your homeland, completing the relocation within 1 day, or you will bear the consequences. Don't say you were not warned. The fleets receiving the message reacted differently. Those who had witnessed the pale light instantly obliterating monsters were extremely sensible and withdrew to observe from a distance. However, there were always one or two who refused to believe in the threat. Not only did they doubt, but they also directly replied with mockery, saying things like they wouldn't retreat, and what could be done to them. This person is from the second line of the Pacific, meaning he is among those who have not been affected by the monster attacks. In response to his provocation, the fleet representatives from this universe chose to ignore it. He simply waited for a whole day. Captain, what will they do? The first officer of the Southern Fleet stationed in Australia asked, somewhat anxiously. What does it matter? Can they attack us directly? Captain Stewart, known for his intelligence, raised the book on the butterfly effect in his hand, snapped it shut, and confidently declared. They must have some limitations when crossing parallel universes. They won't act recklessly. I see. The first officer sighed in relief, looking at Stewart with a hint of admiration. Look, this is our captain. Other fleets are timid. Whatever the opponent says, they just comply. Hey, a single remark scared them off. Stewart had rich experience in dealing with large Eastern powers. It was just a matter of banter, and the other side wouldn't do anything. Could they actually fight him? From his understanding of the Eastern powers, it was unlikely. Even if it was the Eastern power from a parallel universe, their behavior seemed quite similar during his observation. This was where his confidence came from. Thinking of this, he disdainfully glanced at the fleet's information chain. The other fleets were such cowards, obediently retreating, utterly useless. However, he clearly misunderstood one thing. That warning about not being unprepared was not a joke. Unbeknownst to him, a day quickly passed. At midnight, precisely at 12 o'clock, Stewart, who was sound asleep, was abruptly awakened by the fleet's battle alert. He opened the hatch in shock and saw a shining pale light in the distance, slowly gliding over the sea like a scanner. The light illuminated the surface of the water, leaving no inch untouched, and it was terrifying to behold. The opponent's speed looked slow, but in an instant, it reached the side of the ship. Once it shone into the vessel, anyone illuminated by it instantly turned into a cloud of blood mist. This bizarre scene caused those who were awakened to gasp in horror. Oh my god, what is that? Ah, help. No. The cries, chaos, and blood mist turned the quiet night into a nightmare. Stewart stood frozen in place, his pupils dilating as he breathed heavily. Clearly frightened, he recognized what this was. This was the pale light of the strangling monster. The other side had truly attacked. How could this be possible? Terrified, Stewart wanted to say something, but the next moment, before he could utter a word, he was instantly transformed into a cloud of blood mist. It was only at this moment that he fully understood that the other side was indeed serious. After a whole day, it was exactly a day. It was precisely 12 o'clock, not a second more, not a second less. How incredibly punctual. Chapter 259. Humorous sells the warning to the Pacific Rim was certainly not a joke. Nonsense. Are you bold enough to send spies towards the space gate? Next time, will you dare to send someone with a bomb to carry out a terrorist attack? Although this is also the reason for the fishing law enforcement in this universe. But isn't there any fault on your part? Setting aside the facts, do you really have no mistakes? Without your ulterior motives, could my fishing law enforcement have succeeded? When dealing with the Pioneer faction, I am cautious and careful. When confronting you, I strike hard. That day, under the pale light shining over the Pacific, all fleets were silenced. Stewart's fleet, consisting of an amphibious assault ship, 2 cruisers, and 4 destroyers, instantly vanished. Facing the pale light shot down from the spacecraft in high orbit, the most powerful naval fleet on Earth showed no resistance whatsoever. Of course, if the fleet of this universe wanted to swim on the surface, it would have to change its flag. The terrifying pale light disintegrated everything under its illumination. whether human or marine life. Even a passing blue whale was instantly turned into a pool of blood in the sea. Blue whale? What did I do to you? This is a misfire. I want to file a complaint. The next morning, the whole world was as silent as the Pacific. Witnessing Stuart's fate, the fleets drifting in the Pacific dared not defy and retreated to their homeland in disgrace. The fleet of the Eastern Power following the fleet of this universe also took the opportunity to seize these bases. The aerial fleet continued to press down to the edge of the coastline before stopping. Below, the guards and navy observing the spacecraft through their equipment were sweating profusely. Although there was only one spacecraft, this was not a filming location for a blockbuster, even without shields. Just hovering in low Earth orbit and sweeping with that pale light could directly annihilate a nation. One spacecraft, merely one spacecraft, hung like the sword of Damocles over the entire nation, leaving everyone feeling powerless. Throughout the process, the spacecraft made no communications. No matter how much the military and guards requested to communicate, the other side completely ignored them. Silence was the greatest contempt. Whether in this universe or in the surrounding region, there was no longer any qualification to negotiate at the table with the Eastern Power. If you don't provoke me, I might treat you as equals. If you do provoke me, I will strike without negotiation. Of course, the extermination of humanity is off the table. The spacecraft quietly hovered in low Earth orbit for 7 days, causing the entire nation to be tense for a week. Finally, after the representatives paid a heavy price in the United Nations, they managed to persuade Chun Jimin to mediate. Only then did the spacecraft slowly leave. A single spacecraft hovering in low Earth orbit could instill fear in an entire nation, making it too afraid to fight. Low Earth orbit seemed like the coastal waters of the Eastern Power in the 19th century, with the ships on the sea being flimsy wooden boats, while the spacecraft seemed like the powerful ironclad ships of the past. However, the roles have suddenly shifted. The era of threatening a nation by setting up cannons in nearby waters has never passed. It's just that the protagonists of the story have changed. This world remains one where the strong prey on the weak. Nevertheless, other nations can be thankful that the great power from the East has always disguised itself as a civilized state. At least, they won't be as barbaric and crude as the Western powers during the age of exploration. They will gradually annex the surrounding weaker cultures, just as they have done throughout history. Cough, cough. If you don't want to be annexed, there is nothing you can do. My means of influence are not weak either. In the vicinity of the Pacific Rim, an old acquaintance rarely visits, and this time it's for the purpose of mining. The resources in the star system of the Pioneer clan are abundant to a shocking degree. Mining definitely requires manpower. There are only so many people in this universe, and there aren't enough to mine asteroids, so it's impossible to send more over. Therefore, this heavy responsibility falls on the great power from the Pacific Rim. For this reason, the 9 provinces in this universe are even willing to directly invest technology. Anyway, the production equipment of the alien world as humans is already at hand, so they can directly ramp up production lines. Production lines for production lines. Old Wu, the mining matter is entrusted to you. With a joyful tone, the old acquaintance gazed into the distance and continued, we will bring over the relevant technology, no, the production lines for mining ships, shortly. You all should prepare to train the pilots. Oh, and various benefits must keep up. Ha ha ha, don't worry, old Ju, we'll take care of this. Old Wu excitedly patted his chest. Now, it's as if they've acknowledged each other as brothers, with a big brother to rely on. As long as they mine for the big brother, there are technologies and resources available. Old Wu couldn't imagine how advanced their technology would be in a few years. At the very least, they should be able to produce simple spacecraft, right? It shouldn't be a problem to outshine other countries globally. By then, they could also explore the solar system. The more he thought about it, the more excited Old Wu became. This mining business must be done well. There can be no room for carelessness. With your words, I am reassured. Old Ju nodded in satisfaction. The two old men had already started to comfortably refer to each other with familiar titles. With the same status in the great power from the East, their exchanges made them feel more in sync. They were kindred spirits. How much mineral wealth is there on the opposite side? Just as the conversation was winding down, Old Wu remembered to ask for an estimate. He needed to know how many mines there were to arrange manpower and prepare mining plans. If they could quickly finish the mining, these devices could be converted on-site and directly advance into the solar system. How much is there? Old Ju had been so engrossed in the pleasant conversation that he hadn't revealed the specifics yet. Seeing the confident expression on Old Wu's face, Old Ju smiled mysteriously. Good, good, good. It's great that you're so confident. Just don't be taken aback when you hear the specific numbers later. The voice paused for a moment, and Old Ju gently said, 97 planets, each one bigger than Earth. Just one planet, right? Old Wu estimated that it should be the star of the pioneer race. As soon as Old Ju finished speaking, he nodded in response. But just as the words left his mouth, he suddenly realized something. Wait, how many did you say? 97 planets, all resource-rich, each one bigger than Earth. Old Ju chuckled and repeated it. 97 planets? Old Wu took a deep breath, his eyes widening. My goodness, who wouldn't be confused by this? So many resource-rich planets. How long would it take to exploit them all? Compared to these resources, the solar system is just a little brother. Old Wu's mind raced. And after a few seconds, he made a firm decision. Let us do it. With so many minerals, this universe definitely won't consume them all at once. Even if a little spills over, it would be enough to satisfy them. As for the solar system, we can save it for later. 97. Wow, old Jew. Your technology better be up to par. Don't worry, absolutely. Then I can be completely at ease. I'll first tackle the livelihood issues. Then train a few 100,000 laid-off workers to start mining and set up smelting plants to get things rolling for you. Nonsense. Smelting plants already have sparks. You have no sense of humor at all. I'm a robot now. Where would I get cells from? Chapter 260. Even if you beat me up, I would still have to say it was a good beating. The Pacific Rim has temporarily been designated as a resource universe due to the Pioneer star system. In fact, the alien world also has this potential. But since the humans on Earth and the alien world are currently quite strong, this universe isn't ready to take action yet. After all, the humans in the alien world are reckless, not foolish. If this universe really reaches into Earth's territory and gets discovered, what awaits them might be the first interstellar war. Given the cautious nature of this universe, it's not a situation where they would crush everything. Hey, I want to fight. Until the time comes when they can operate like the overwhelming force in the Pacific Rim, then, haha. The accounts of the eastern powers of Earth being suppressed will naturally need to be settled. As for now, let us borrow your scientists for a bit. In the 9 provinces, in the underground section of the United University of the 9 provinces, there was a complete engineer spaceship engine with a meaty structure in a certain laboratory. Next to it, there was 3 individuals in white lab coats with expressions resembling infatuated fools, carefully touching the engine structure. The 2 middle-aged men and an old man, had expressions that were quite comical. They reached out their hands as if they were holding their beloved. The sight was rather unsettling. Indeed, these 3 are Tang Wire, Xiao Sun, and Malti, especially Tang Wire and Xiao Sun, who had gone through great hardships and finally got their wish to study an alien engine. However, the situation in the laboratory was quite strange. After a brief moment of infatuation, the 3 of them, upon hearing a cough, neatly placed their hands in front of their stomachs and stood aside in an orderly manner. Originally, there were only 4 people in the research room. Besides the 3 of them, there was also Holos. So it's you 3 who want to study the engine of my spaceship? Holos was quite angry at the moment. The biological structure on his ship had only just been restored with great difficulty. As long as he wrote an application, he might be able to put it back together and then dismantle other ships. But now, because these 3 were so eager to study the alien spaceship, they were directly assigned here. This means that his engine had to be dismantled again. Yes. The 3 of them were indeed a bit afraid of this alien creature, especially Mart, who had his head down like a quail. Naturally, Holos wouldn't be in a good mood since his beloved vehicle was going to be taken apart again. However, it was fortunate that the repair equipment had arrived, making it much simpler to reinstall these devices later. Thinking of this, Holos felt a little better, raised his hand, and threw the disassembled equipment in front of the 3. You want to study it, right? Then go ahead and take it apart. Make sure to do a good job. The 3 of them immediately nodded in unison. They had originally thought about writing an application to find someone familiar to assist them in studying the alien engine. As a result, the person sent from above was indeed quite familiar. But was this familiarity a bit too much? They actually brought the pilot over here. With an alien watching them, they felt a bit scared, worried that this creature would expose them. It was truly a situation where they wanted to cry but had no tears. Another 6 months passed. During this time, the universe finally produced a prototype equipped with a Rift space shield. The spaceship was small, similar to the Kunming-class vessel. But even though it was small, it was fully equipped. Compared to the Kunming-class ship, the new ship with the shield had an even higher combat power. Ship name, Divine Shield Ship Class, Frigate Weapon Configuration, Kinetic Space Shock Projectiles, Neutron Beam Emitters, Plasma Cannons, Biological Energy Weapons. The designer of this latest experimental ship put in a lot of thought. Within the limited space, they managed to fit in as many weapons as possible. This also meant that the Divine Shield experimental spaceship not only had the hardest shield in the universe, but also the most powerful offensive capabilities. So the question arises, can the weapons used to attack the Divine Shield's Rift space shield break through it? The designer's answer was, it requires more funding. That's right, more funding. As long as there is enough money, upgrades can be made, and shields can be stronger than spears, while spears can also be stronger than shields. Of course, at this stage, it is not impossible to break the Rift shield, but then it's not a comparison of weapon strength, but of energy output strength. In this universe, in the asteroid belt, a space military drill was underway. Truly impressive. Commander Wu stood on the bridge of the Jupiter Gravity, observing the data on the holographic projection. At this moment, the Red Army fleet in the exercise was being called out one by one on the holographic projection. Meanwhile, the Blue Army relied solely on one divine shield. The defense of the shield is fundamentally unbreakable. All previous weapons have been ineffective against it, being torn apart by spatial distortions. In the communication channel, the voices of various ship captains sounded anxious. Not good. We have detected weak white light. The opponent has launched a spatial shockwave projectile. Evade, quickly evade. It's too late. The speed of the spatial shockwave projectile is too fast. Beep, beep, beep. Port side. Port side hit. Seal off the port side immediately. The Solar Storm ship is destroyed. The Solar Storm ship is destroyed. The power compartment of the Axis-era ship has been hit. We detonated the spacecraft. Damn it. Simulation data shows the spatial shockwave projectile was not destroyed. The protected target was hit by a neutron beam. The mission has completely failed. The urgent communications fell silent in an instant. It was 16 against 1. 16 ships were destroyed, leaving them unable to raise their heads. The crew members on the ships were nearly in despair. In the virtual reality equipment, they were already accustomed to being beaten while piloting this troublesome ship. However, facing such a bug-level opponent in a real exercise was unbearable. They were almost beaten into submission. They could only proceed cautiously, taking small steps. But even then, they were still obliterated. The scene was shocking to the onlookers. As the referee, the Jupiter Gravity Ship's commander, Wu Tong, pursed his lips and turned to the intelligence officer, asking, did the Directorate really not strengthen the Blue Army's shield? No. The Directorate made no enhancements to the shield. This is a technical crushing, the intelligence officer replied with a complex expression. He paused briefly and explained. It's like the absolute dominance of firearms over cold weapons. Those wielding cold weapons can never break through the heavy armor of a tank. The spatial tearing shield of the shield has no ability to counteract the distortions of space. No one can break through its defense. And its weapons, once they hit other ships, guarantee the opponent's demise. The voice floated slowly in the cockpit. Wu Tong let out a deep sigh. The gap in technology was truly despairing. Fortunately, this shield was their own. Moreover, in the future, as technology matures, they would undoubtedly equip all ships with this technology. By then, the vast fleet with its solid and reliable tearing shields would become a powerful tool on their path to conquest. The crew members in the exercise felt disheartened for a moment, but then remembered this fact. Yes, in the virtual reality game, the opponent's equipment could not be acquired. However, the opponent in this exercise, the shield, was an experimental ship. The equipment that had overwhelmed them could eventually be equipped on their own ships. They would have these things in the future. Ah, so it turns out it was their own equipment. Then it's no problem. With this thought, the crew members instantly felt energized. Even if you beat us, I must say, well done. Chapter 261, Silicon-based virus in the Pacific Rim, across the wormhole. The Pioneer Star System. Storage 1 and Storage 2 planets are where the Pioneer race stores genetic backup data. These are two forgotten planets. Although the Pioneer civilization has declined, its remnants still linger. These backup planets have not been utilized due to prolonged colonial wars and have been sealed for thousands of years. Today, these two planets finally welcome visitors. A snow-white scientific research vessel slowly enters the orbit of Repository Planet 1 and lands at the data center marked on the map. The data center of Repository Planet 1 is completely different from what people imagined. In fact, this planet itself is also entirely different from expectations. The entire planet shows no signs of artificial structures or any traces of civilization. On these two habitable planets, vegetation is lush and life is abundant. There are vast lands, oceans, lakes, forests, and herds of animals, resembling a primitive ancient world. However, scientists who have studied the core of the pioneer civilization know that behind this flourishing spectacle of life lies the most important element of the pioneer species, their genes. They have hidden their genes within the entire ecosystem. Truly a parasitic civilization, grazing across the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. Biologist Dong Shihai gazes at the scene before him, feeling shocked. On the side of the spaceship stands a towering ancient tree. This ancient tree is at least 200 meters tall, its branches shading the sky and forming a vast shadow on the ground. Its flourishing leaves and robust trunk make it resemble the legendary tree of life. Professor Dong, is this tree the data center where the pioneer species stores their genes? A soldier protecting Dong Shihai and the other scientist squeezes his electromagnetic gun, looks up at the ancient tree, and swallows nervously. Yes, it is. Biological civilizations, after all, have different thoughts and technological paths than we do. Dong Shihai instinctively adjusts his glasses, only to realize he no longer needs them. He smiles at the soldier beside him. What's wrong? Xiao Chun, scared? Of course not. I'm just worried this little gun won't protect you, Professor. Xiao Chun, wearing powered armor, immediately puts his electromagnetic gun behind him, turns around, and pulls out a mysterious weapon, straightening his chest confidently. What's this? Dong Shihai raises an eyebrow. This is a plasma ray cannon. With a temperature of tens of thousands of degrees. Whatever comes, I'll burn it. Xiao Chun chuckles. Any creature will not escape my tens of thousands of degrees ray cannon. I'll turn you to ash. Alright, then we can rest easy. Let us prepare to disembark. With this firepower, Dong Shihai, who was only joking earlier, feels even more reassured. At that moment, the spaceship has completely stabilized. They are about to set off. A group of people, wearing biological exoskeletons and protective suits, disembark from the spaceship and walk towards the giant tree not far away. Approaching the tree, Dong Shihai feels his hand tremble slightly as he gazes at this giant tree that holds the backup gene bank of the entire pioneer civilization. They have actually taken genetic engineering to this level. Beside him, Holos was equally amazed. This was a form of biotechnological advancement that was completely different from that of engineers. Let's start retrieving the information. After a few moments of reflection, Dong Shihai set down a small briefcase he had been holding. He slowly opened the case and took out a skeletal plate with both hands. If there were scientists from the Pacific Rim world studying monsters present, they would immediately recognize that this skeletal plate was a common component for monsters. He gently approached the ancient tree with the skeletal plate. At the moment of contact, a resonant sound echoed throughout the vicinity. On the trunk of the ancient tree, faint blue light pulses gradually emerged, quickly rising to the canopy from the point of contact with the skeletal plate. Then, a shocking scene unfolded. In front of the ancient tree, A blurry holographic projection began to materialize in the air, slowly solidifying. The ancient tree had surprisingly become a holographic projection device. Truly remarkable biotechnological prowess. It was somewhat similar to the holographic projections on the ships of the engineer race. According to the data on the Pioneer mainframe, this area should primarily contain the genetic data of the pioneers, along with a small portion of experimental data from the sub-prosperity era aimed at emerging from the Great Depression. The universe and the region had long been prepared to retrieve this data. Dong Shihai was here to implement it. He skillfully began to operate the holographic projection in front of him, transferring a vast amount of data into the light quantum storage device he had brought. However, as the data collection reached its end, Dong Shihai keenly discovered a data file with a special annotation. Let's pull it from the database. Holos also looked over with curiosity. As he slowly opened it, dense data instantly filled the entire screen. Upon seeing this data, Dong Shihai's pupils constricted sharply, and his mouth dropped open. This is a record of a silicon-based life form civilization. Indeed, it was. Holos nodded solemnly. Dong Shihai's eyes widened. Silicon-based life forms, and a civilization at that. How rare is this? Why do humans in this universe search for extraterrestrial life using Earth as a template? That's because if life has already emerged on Earth, then planets with similar environments are very likely to have also developed life. Where there is one, there can be another. Furthermore, the conditions for forming carbon-based life are much simpler. For instance, isn't there a primitive form of life on Europa? It is precisely because the conditions for carbon-based life to form are much simpler that silicon-based life is even more precious. Silicon-based civilizations are like the giant pandas of the biological world. Engineers can't find a single silicon-based biological civilization even with a lantern in flourishing worlds. Now, the genetic database of the pioneers actually recorded the hereditary information of a silicon-based biological civilization. Not only Dong Shihai, but Holos's eyes also lit up with excitement. Silicon-based life forms are rare, and silicon-based civilizations are true treasures. Treasures for the study of biological civilizations. Data shows that after the discovery of the silicon-based biological civilization, the Pioneer clan initially intended to convert their entire race into silicon-based beings, hoping to escape a major recession by switching tracks. However, the entire plan ultimately failed. Dong Shihai exhaled, gazing at the database with a gleam in his eyes. Later, they conducted a detailed analysis of the information regarding the silicon-based biological civilization. This data is recorded here. Although the plan temporarily failed, the information remains, and who knows what future technologies might achieve. This is why there is genetic material from this silicon-based civilization in the Pioneer clan's gene bank. Nevertheless, this discovery alone is worth it. This is the genetic information of a silicon-based biological civilization. Holos couldn't help but smile broadly. This discovery will be reported to the highest elder, and surely he would receive some recognition for it. Just like that. Keep going, keep going. By the end, who knows? He might even become a high elder himself and lead the engineer clan towards new glory. Dino, why do I feel a bit chilly behind me? Chapter 262. I, Holos, want funding. In the Kyushu world, in the Space-Restricted Research Laboratory. Recently, in addition to the Blackwater Laboratory, several unmanned laboratories have been added here. The items stored in laboratories that can be on par with the Blackwater Lab are undoubtedly dangerous. Moreover, the materials used to construct the new space laboratory are made of extremely high-strength structural steel. Indeed, it is the upgraded version of the structural steel that supports planet engines. Like in the Wandering Earth. This is because it contains information extracted from the silicon-based biological civilization stored in the Pioneer Civilization's Planet Database No. 1. At the ground observation station, several biologists, along with engineers Holos, Zhou, and Old Zhu, are on site. Cyril's eyes sparkled with excitement. Coming here was undoubtedly the best choice he made in his life. Here, there is not only the ancestral virus, but also knowledge from two biological civilizations. And now they can study the information of the silicon-based biological civilization. This place is simply a paradise for biologists. Are we going to replicate the silicon-based biology? Cyril exhaled and confirmed with Old Zhu once again. Let's start with the simple structure, the silicon-based virus. After much consideration, Old Zhu and the expert team ultimately chose to replicate the silicon-based virus. There is a reason for this decision. In many sci-fi movies and TV shows, there are indeed silicon-based aliens. To deal with such opponents, aside from artificial intelligence for information warfare and various physical weapons, the expert team thought of a more ingenious method. That is the silicon-based virus. If they ever encounter silicon-based beings, they can first use AI to implant a data virus, and then introduce the silicon-based virus to them. Imagine the double poisoning of body and soul. It sounds exhilarating. Yes, while the opponent suffers, they will enjoy it. Well, the materials are ready. And the program is being input to construct the environment. Cyril nodded, accessed the data in the database, and immediately activated the instruments to begin construction. With the current biotechnology in this universe, constructing molecular chains using atomic knives has become incredibly simple. In fact, if they wish, they could even create a new DNA from genetic information. Of course, whether it could become a form of life is uncertain. In a laboratory far in space, silicates began to partially melt in a solution rich in dense iron oxides, nucleotides, and various molecules, leading to the formation of long silicon chains. Subsequently, With the assistance of atomic knives, these silicon chains began connecting nucleotides and various molecules. A long genetic molecule with silicon as its connecting point slowly took shape, constantly spiraling, twisting, and being reshaped under artificial manipulation. Before long, according to the arrangement of genetic information, the first type of silicon-based virus officially emerged. This silicon-based virus draws energy through the oxidation of iron, appearing as a transparent crystal with glass-like fibers connecting its interior, moving very slowly in the solution. However, once it comes into contact with metallic elements, it acts as if it has encountered a cell, directly piercing through the metal and accelerating its oxidation. Thus, in plain sight, the iron being fed to it was visibly oxidized and eroded at a noticeable speed. This is the first silicon-based virus that has been revived. It has a strong corrosive effect on iron. Cyril watched the scene under the microscope as the silicon-based virus rapidly dissolved the iron. Not only does it corrode, but if there are silicon-based genetic chains nearby, this virus can cause even greater damage to genetic material. Holos shook his head and took over Cyril's control. Without saying a word, he directly introduced several carbon-based cells into the solution. What followed was a terrifying scene. The moment the carbon-based blood cells entered, the silicon-based virus immediately utilized its protrusions to pierce through the entire cell. What is this? Cyril broke out in a cold sweat. Why does the silicon-based virus exhibit such strong aggression towards carbon-based cells? It cannot recognize them, so it attacks indiscriminately. Holos shrugged. This explanation left everyone momentarily stunned. Such a simple and brutal logic. If it can't recognize, just attack everything? Isn't this similar to wiping out all intruders? This follows the same logic as the silicon-based life forms we have encountered. Although the engineering civilization has not met silicon-based civilizations, they have certainly encountered silicon-based life forms. Holos, being a biologist, understands the mechanisms of silicon-based viruses much better than humans do. This thing is very dangerous. If it is to be developed into a weapon against silicon-based life, its lethality must be restricted. Zhu Lao smirked. Creating a silicon-based biological weapon that results in indiscriminate killing is problematic. It doesn't distinguish between friend and foe. Just throw it out and let it kill. TSK. This thing pairs well with the Blackwater. Indeed, it's too dangerous. This silicon-based virus is directly aimed at killing carbon-based cells. Cyril nodded repeatedly. This silicon-based virus is incredibly ruthless. It kills everything it cannot recognize. Most carbon-based viruses coexist with their hosts. So it's somewhat unreasonable to aim for the complete destruction of the host, right? The challenge lies in how to limit modifications. Cyril has struggled with this point. The biotechnology he possesses, learned from engineers and ancient civilizations, is already quite advanced. However, he finds himself at a loss when it comes to completely unfamiliar silicon-based life forms. He is powerless to modify silicon-based viruses. Let me take this on. At this moment, seeing many humans in difficulty, Holos recognized the opportunity and immediately stepped forward, proactively stating, I have previously researched silicon-based life forms and can conduct such experiments. Professor Dong can assist me. As one of the most pragmatic engineers, Holos understands well that only those who take initiative can seize the upper hand. Look at that, while others are still in confinement. He already has his own little room and can even enjoy a foot bath. This is also an opportunity. Addressing Professor Zhu in a familiar manner helps to close the distance. Having studied silicon-based life indicates his capability. Bringing in Dong Shihai for assistance is also wise, as he is an outsider, and having someone supervise can provide reassurance. Holos's proactive attitude surprised Professor Zhu, who looked over in astonishment. You, a big alien, are integrating quite quickly. After thinking for a few seconds and recalling Holos's usual performance, Professor Zhu nodded slightly, approved. Let Professor Dong's team assist you. If you need anything, feel free to ask. We can speed up the progress on the silicon-based virus. Yes. Holos stood up straight, acknowledging the command. He would complete this task efficiently and accurately. Then he applied to visit the prison where the engineers were held. After so long, he finally had the confidence to face the High Elder directly. I, Holos, have not defected. Chapter 263. Target, interstellar dust in a certain orbit thousands of kilometers from Mars. A dark battleship slowly passed by, while a mandatory caller continuously issued commands to all spacecraft. THJ area is closed, and no spacecraft is allowed to approach. Repeat, this is a military order. All aircraft receiving this command must execute it immediately. Of course, in the current universe, nearly all spacecraft belong to a major Eastern power, and no one dares to dissent. Within almost an hour, all ships in that area had left of their own accord. Captain of the Axis Era. This Axis Era is not the time of a certain dictator, but rather a commemoration of the Axis age before our era, when human thought burst forth. Captain Wang Wuzong stood on the command platform with a serious expression. Nearby, crew members were closely monitoring the entire THJ area. This was a strict order from above, and it was imperative to expel all unauthorized aircraft. Captain, all mining ships have already left. The intelligence officer smiled and reported the execution status to Wang Wuzong. A total of 34 small mining ships in the area have been completely driven away, but wait. As he finished the report, the intelligence officer pressed his earpiece, and his expression suddenly became somewhat strange. What's going on? Captain Wang noticed something unusual and immediately inquired about the presence of any flying objects in the THJ area. There were indeed flying objects. and it was impossible that the other side hadn't heard the call. The captain furrowed his brow, clearly confused. The intelligence officer's expression became even stranger. He pressed the earpiece and listened carefully for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed inexplicably. Once the intelligence report was completed, he looked up and explained, "The other party can't hear the call because it isn't ours at all. This is a probe launched by a certain nation a year ago." As he spoke, the intelligence officer pulled up a holographic projection and magnified the signal source. Sure enough, in the dark void, an old-fashioned spacecraft wrapped in golden plating, equipped with solar sails and several thrusters, was slowly moving forward. Well, it wasn't exactly old-fashioned. It was just a design from a few years ago. The holographic projection continued to zoom in, revealing the entire spacecraft, including a small star-spangled banner in the corner, clearly visible. After hearing the intelligence officer's report and seeing the spacecraft in front of him, Captain Wang's mouth twitched. He stood there stunned for 2 seconds, then pointed at the holographic projection and chuckled. Haha, I almost forgot. There are indeed flying objects from other nations in the sky. You know, it's quite novel to see the flag of that certain nation in space. By the way, don't they have a probe on Mars too? Suddenly, Captain Wang recalled this matter. It had been sent out long ago. Mars was now our territory. The intelligence officer scoffed and speculated. That flying object is probably headed to Jupiter for a gravity assist. What should we do, Captain? What to do? Once the novelty wore off, Wang casually waved his hand and said, "Send a signal, find a mining ship, and follow its trajectory to clear the THJ area. It must be emptied." Understood. On Earth, in the remnants of the aviation bureau of that certain nation, researchers were bewildered as they watched the probe suddenly accelerate and fly over 1,000,000 kilometers. What on earth? How did their spacecraft suddenly speed up like this? Outside Mars orbit, the vast THJ area was completely cleared. The reason for clearing this area was that a superluminal ship from an alien world was preparing to set sail. The transport ship had been modified so much that even its original designers might not recognize it. Except for the power and command systems, all movable structures had been altered. You can't go that far without weapons, right? They weren't reckless humans from an alien world. A scientific expedition ship is truly just that, without even a weapon on board. Everything that could be fitted, from neutron beam emitters to plasma weapons and spatial shock bombs, was crammed inside. Now that the weapons were ready, defense systems needed to be in place as well. Tear shields? Check. Armor had to be thickened and thickened again. Escape pods also had to be prepared in advance. After such extensive modifications, the originally spacious cargo hold of the transport ship was now packed full of equipment. The transport ship has a larger internal space now. If we were to switch to another type of ship, we would have to rebuild the hull. The spacecraft modification personnel responded with high emotional intelligence. This transport ship is truly a platform with immense potential, just like a certain model. Regardless, the spacecraft has been successfully modified. As for flying, transitioning is also manageable. Since it can fly, let's prepare for departure. Within the dense asteroid belt of the THJ region, there is a vast military spaceport hidden among the asteroids, next to the docks. The execution team for Project 237 has gathered. Zhu Lao Zhozhe and others stood facing Fang Jing and Zhou Yuan. At this moment, Fang Jing and Zhou Yuan were wearing modified biosuits, standing straight against the internal pressure, solemnly nodding towards Zhu Lao and the others. Zhu Lao, it's just a distance of 2 light years. We'll be back soon, Fang Jing said with a light laugh. His tone relaxed. 2 light years is nothing. In the alien world, he once traveled several hundred light years in an engineer's ship, with a faster-than-light spacecraft as the vehicle. A mere 2 light years is just half a year's journey, and that's at a safe, low-speed travel. For them in hibernation, this time is just a drop in the bucket. I understand. 2 light years, Zhu Lao nodded, then glanced at the docks, feeling somewhat complicated. Once upon a time, even reaching the sky was a challenge. Now, 2 light years have become just a trivial matter, which is quite remarkable. After a pause, Zhu Lao suddenly smiled at Fang Jing. It seems that in the future, the farthest distance humans can reach will have to be refreshed by you. Of course. Fang Jing replied, proudly lifting his head. I am the pioneer of humanity's boundaries, whether in this universe or parallel ones. Great. Zhu Lao nodded in approval, then pointed to the transport ship behind him, reminding, go ahead, the spacecraft is ready. Goodbye, Zhu Lao. Fang Jing nodded affirmatively, waved his hand, and without hesitation turned to head towards the boarding gate of the spacecraft. Zhou Yuan nodded to everyone, then dragged his equipment and led the team to follow Fang Jing. In the dock, the spacecraft's hatch slowly closed, and the takeoff alert sounded throughout the entire port area. The spacecraft is about to take off. Please evacuate the tail exhaust area immediately. Once the flight display confirmed everything was in order, the takeoff command was issued. Subsequently, the rear exhaust began to emit a bluish glow. Once it reaches the orbit of Jupiter, it will enter transition mode and begin the faster-than-light phase. Destination: the interstellar dust zone 2 light years away. Goal: a new world. Chapter 264. You're quite good at hiding. The transport ship has set sail with Fang Jing aboard. After this period of development, matters concerning several universes have been clarified. Zhu Lao made the decision for the ship's departure after thorough consideration. The current universe and the technology from a certain region have entered a phase of stagnation, and significant breakthroughs are unlikely in the short term. The Lightspeed engine, due to equipment from the alien world, has entered the design and manufacturing stage. The following is just a matter of slowly refining, integrating, and experimenting. In the Pacific Rim world, supported directly by the industrial line, the construction of spacecraft has begun, preparing for large-scale mining operations. The manpower originally allocated to various projects under the 237 program has become available. Since the personnel from the 237 program are now free, it's time to embark on a new journey. After all, the original mission of the 237 program was to develop and utilize parallel universes. With the speed of transport ships, even at an extremely slow pace, it only takes 6 months. In the spacecraft engine research room, Marte explained to Tang Wire and the others with some anticipation. In 6 months, we could have a new parallel universe, hopefully with the technology we desire. Knock, knock, knock. Outside the laboratory, Holos, who had come out from the biological lab for a stroll, tapped on the glass. He looked sternly at the three who were distracted while holding parts of his beloved spacecraft. What are you chatting about? Focus. Yes, yes, yes. The three of them immediately lowered their heads like quails. Why does this guy always linger around? You've been reassigned. Stop obsessing over that damn spacecraft. Those eyes staring at them were as big as copper bells, quite intimidating. Seeing that the three had settled down, Holos stepped away somewhat reluctantly. However, as he left, he muttered softly, it would be great if the new world has biological civilizations. If the new world indeed had different biological civilizations, he would gladly be the vanguard and charge in. After that, when he returned to the prison to see the elder, would he still be afraid? By then, even the highest elder would be speaking kindly to him. Indeed, everyone involved in the 237 program, regardless of whether they were human or not, was very much looking forward to the new world. After all, a new world represents new technologies, new insights, and new resources, and these will shape a new future. Of course, while anticipating the new world, they also cannot forget to work diligently on their research. The top technologies from several worlds, whether from humans or extraterrestrials, are converging together. Different ideas, different paths, and different philosophies are slowly blending. However, surprisingly, the first technological breakthrough was in superluminal communication. The communications science research team successfully restored the superluminal communication devices from the Prometheus and Cuviat spacecraft using alien technology. This means that a piece of the puzzle for our universe to become a cross-stellar republic has already been gathered. It has been said that communication and transport speeds will limit the size of territories. Just imagine, if it takes years to reach another place at the fastest speed and years to communicate, can your territory really extend that far? Even if you take the time to conquer that place, by the time you turn around, they could cause you trouble. This is the impact of transport speed and communication. And now, superluminal communication has come into existence. It's hard to say about a galaxy that spans over 100,000 light years. But it's time to consider the nearby star systems. The Elder Zhu has already set his sights beyond the solar system. In the Pacific Rim, a pioneer star system has a planet designated as one. Underneath a towering ancient tree, a research station has been established. Biologists from several universes have gathered here to study this ancient tree, which has the ability to use biological functions to create holographic projections and store data from the pioneer civilization spanning tens of thousands of years. Their biological technology is truly astonishing. Panway gazes up at the tree, which resembles a skyscraper, and can't help but be amazed. They are the second group of biologists to arrive. The previous group, led by Professor Dong Shihai, has already extracted the data and left, while they remain for further research. With such a massive tree, could it conceal the genes of a wise civilization? A biologist from an eastern nation in the Pacific Rim poses the question. They were specially sent by Wu Lao to learn advanced technology. Could plants possess wisdom? Pan Wei furrows his brow and examines the ancient tree closely. Perhaps there really are plant civilizations in the universe. But at least this ancient tree on Planet 1 cannot be one of them. At this point, he glances at the many scholars behind him and jokingly says, otherwise, how could we still be alive? Huh. Indeed, at least this ancient tree couldn't possibly exist as a wise civilization. When Professor Pan speaks of plant civilizations, he means organisms with chlorophyll in their cells, right? Exactly. The others behind him chuckle in agreement. However, among them, Luo Ding, a disciple of the biologist Shirue from the Jojo world, remains deeply furrowed in thought. Although the remarks from the biologists were made in jest, the fact that this ancient tree can utilize biological functions for holographic projection raises questions. Would it be strange if it had some form of intelligence? Its internal structure is superior to fiber optics. As for the idea that if it had intelligence, it might attack humans, Luo Ding glances subtly at the distant spaceship. If he remembers correctly, there have always been people guarding the high-energy weapons aboard the ship. In this situation, attacking would be foolish. Nevertheless, all of this remains speculation. Can plants truly achieve civilization or possess intelligence? Luo Ding ponders this in his mind. Is it reasonable for a plant-based system to have intelligence? Both parallel universes are home to animal civilizations, including humans, who are also animals. Given this context, he finds himself curious about what level of intelligence plants might reach if they were to develop it. Or rather, if they discover plant intelligence. It would open a new chapter in their biology. It would be a completely blank field, unimaginable by both engineer and pioneer civilizations. It would represent another form of life entirely. Well, whether or not this plant has intelligence, let us continue our research. After a brief discussion, Panway decides to commence the study. He fixates on the gigantic ancient tree and murmurs, "Why don't we just propose to dig this tree up? It's too amazing." I second that. Once upon a time, would the higher-ups allow this? They should, since the data has been read anyway. So will this tree die? It probably will. But we'll do our best to keep it alive. No worries. Even if it dies, the data will remain, and we can just take a section of the core. Then I just want a piece of the bark. Hey, why are we dividing this up? My lab needs a section of the trunk too. Aye. One can imagine how ruthless these scientists' words are. In the distance, the towering ancient tree seemed to sense an overwhelming malice that was almost palpable, causing its hidden branches and leaves to tremble slightly. Shivering. It's definitely scared. And just at that moment, beep 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 beep. In the distance, alarms rang out on the spaceship. Seeing the alarm, the accompanying biologist widened his eyes in shock, rubbed them to make sure he wasn't mistaken, and then excitedly shouted into the channel. Everyone, just now, there were intense electric signal fluctuations around that tree. These signals are remarkably similar to the brain signals of a creature in fear. What you just said might have scared it, revealing its true form. Goodness. This tree can really hide. Chapter 265, it really has intelligence. In the Pioneer Galaxy, Planet 1, next to the ancient tree, in front of the spaceship, the atmosphere instantly fell silent, eerily quiet. The biologist on the spaceship had just spoken, which rendered everyone speechless. Wait, what did you say, old Wong? Panway couldn't believe it, and rubbed his ears. Outside the spaceship, many biologists exchanged glances, all looking confused. I said, there are strong electric signals around the tree, which are extremely similar to the brain signals of a frightened organism. In the frequency channel, old Wong suppressed his excitement and said in a high-spirited tone, we may have made a significant discovery. This tree, it has intelligence. After repeating it, the biologists outside the spaceship instantly erupted in a frenzy. What? This tree has intelligence? It can really hide. Could it be that our earlier discussion scared it? Can it understand what we're saying? It might be some kind of biological perception. That's even more interesting. A group of biologists got excited discussing this. Several of them even started breathing rapidly. Plants, trees, with intelligence. Who among those present wouldn't be moved by this? Even Panway instantly forgot about the joke he made earlier and immediately contacted the captain of the spaceship. Captain Zhang, aim all weapons at that ancient tree immediately. I've heard your conversation, and the weapons are already calibrated. On the communication channel, Captain Zhang was also very intrigued. The ship's cannons were already aimed at the ancient tree. Hearing his assurance, Panway immediately felt at ease. A mere plant. We'll just cut off your options to attack us. Little brother, weren't you good at hiding? What's wrong? Can't sit still. Ancient tree, nonsense. I said I would strip your bark and pull your tendons, and I'm really preparing to do so. Can you sit still? Hee, a wise tree. Hee. A water paper. Hee, a new discipline. Hee, a new research direction. With the security guaranteed by force, the biologists present instantly turned their heads in unison. Their bright green eyes were fixed on the tall trunk, as if they were gazing at a treasure. This tree represents the superluminal engine in the field of spacecraft propulsion, and controllable nuclear fusion in the energy sector. It marks a new chapter in biology. It is an unparalleled treasure. Quickly informed the elder Zhu, we need support. We need Panway stopped the colleague who was about to rush out and spoke loudly into the captain's channel. We need equipment and personnel to ensure our safety. Those involved in Project 237 never fight unprepared battles. Since we've discovered this tree has issues, we need to call for people and weapons. When the time comes, we will pin this tree down so it won't dare to resist. After that, we can happily start our research. I'll notify immediately. The spaceship captain promptly contacted the wormhole entrance. Support would arrive soon. Meanwhile, the towering ancient tree felt a chilling wave. It sensed a strong malice. But there was a serious problem. It only had roots, not legs, and it couldn't run away. Hollis was having a meal in the cafeteria. The engineer race had a high genetic similarity to humans, and their food was quite similar too. Even though the species were different. They couldn't eat the same things. But with biotechnology, you know how it is. The various enzymes and digestive bacteria in the gut could be replaced. So now, he was awkwardly blending in with humans, eating the same food, and crossing his legs like the soldier next to him. Oh, and using wooden chopsticks too. Just as he was marveling at the incredible taste of the sweet and sour fish in his mouth, his communicator suddenly rang. Gulp. He took a big sip of soup and then reached to light up the communicator. At that moment, a message filled the entire screen. Discovered a wise tree on Pioneer Storage 1 planet. Uffed. He sprayed out the soup in shock. Hollis widened his eyes, looking utterly bewildered. A wise plant. What is going on? Impossible, absolutely impossible. I'm telling you, there's no way a plant could awaken intelligence. There must be another explanation. Slamming his hand on the table, Hollis felt his biological knowledge was being challenged. If plants could awaken intelligence, he couldn't help but wonder how that would work. Sometimes, you just can't be too hard on yourself. Drinking soup upside down. Yes, drinking soup upside down. Let us see what tricks the Pioneer race is up to. Hollis snorted coldly, completely disbelieving the message. Think about it. The engineers built their reputation on biotechnology, dominating the galaxy for thousands of years during the Glorious Era, and then cutting through the galaxy for a millennium during the Great Recession. With such a long history, biotechnology had developed to its peak. Yet, they had never encountered the notion of intelligent plants. Now, this group of humans, having learned a bit of biotechnology, actually dares to say they have encountered intelligent trees. It's simply laughable, thinking about it. Holos Henti even finished his meal and rushed to catch the last bus heading towards the Pacific Rim. Nearly 3 hours later, Holos was urgently sent to Storage Planet 1. Before the spacecraft had completely landed, the tall Holos jumped down from the hatch. Panway led him to the research vessel. A quick-witted scientist immediately replayed the anomalous electrical signals recorded earlier, looking at the direction the detector was pointed and then at the peaks displayed on the screen. The weary Holos' doubts gradually turned into shock, his pupils widening in disbelief. Is this possible? Is this reasonable? This must be fake. I don't believe it. The previous results for the tree samples were all ordinary plant structures, right? Holos turned in astonishment to Panway. Yes, they were all plant structures. Which is why we brought you here. It's truly unbelievable. Panway nodded. The previous structures sent for inspection looked like ordinary trees. Whether this tree has intelligence, I don't know, but it definitely has basic emotions. Holos was still somewhat skeptical. He wouldn't make a hasty conclusion based on a single piece of evidence. So, he prepared to investigate personally. He wanted to see where this electrical signal was coming from. After saying that, Holos rubbed his palms together and quietly activated the signal collector, aiming it at the nearby tree. At the same time, he shouted to the captain of the protective squad gathering in the distance. Hurry! Get some people over here and chop down this tree. Chop it down directly? Panway was astonished. Wouldn't that just kill it? Don't worry about it dying. Even if it gets cut into pieces, we can still study something. Holos was completely unconcerned. Panway's eyes darted around, sensing something, and he silently nodded. Other biologists, seeing the engineer take the lead, also nodded in agreement. Thus, the protective team watched as the heavy cavalry assembled a massive chainsaw and really got to work. The soldiers, clad in heavy cavalry gear, suddenly pulled the chainsaw. The buzzing sound of the chainsaw echoed instantly. At that moment, the ancient tree in the distance finally couldn't hold on any longer. Ancient tree. Oh no, are you serious? Don't come any closer. Chapter 266. The ancient tree has something to say. The harsh chainsaw noise erupted, and the soldier operating the heavy cavalry was really about to proceed with the command. A chainsaw over 10 meters long, with one cut, would leave the ancient tree severely damaged. It would lose half its life, just as the saw blade got closer. The tall, dense tree suddenly began to shake. Beep, beep, beep. In front of Holos and the others, the detector's display, which had been stable, suddenly spiked. A peak. A violent electrical signal surrounded the giant tree. The sudden fluctuation immediately caught the attention of all the biologists present. There was indeed a reaction. The electrical signal fluctuations were stronger than before, which was alarming. Amazing, truly amazing. Should we continue? The drastic changes in the electrical signals left Holos shocked and astonished. The evidence was right before him. It was impossible for him not to believe. This tree truly reacted. Furthermore, it could even respond emotionally based on their threatening actions. Perhaps it possessed intelligence. With wide eyes, Holos looked up in surprise at the enormous ancient tree and took a deep breath. If this ancient tree was undergoing such changes naturally, then its research value would be unexpectedly high. A plant exhibiting clear animal-like intelligent responses could open up a new field of study for biological civilizations. This kind of research was extremely valuable. Holos thought about a lot. If this was a natural phenomenon, he not only had to lead the engineers towards glory, but also continue to explore these strange creatures and civilizations from parallel universes. He could even become the new leader of a transformative era. At that time, the entire engineer clan would sing his praises. Ancestral god Holos. Haha. Buzz, buzz. What is that sound? It seems like the sound of a chainsaw. Wait a minute. Holos thought of the ancient tree and the data from the pioneer civilization, which he had the privilege to review due to his military achievements, while the elders did not. He felt a sense of satisfaction. In the end, he even started to daydream. But then, hearing the buzzing sound, he suddenly realized. Damn it. He forgot to tell those soldiers to stop. Wait, don't cut that tree. Holos's expression changed dramatically. He hurriedly shouted a couple of commands over the communication channel. That tree was a unique research specimen. What? In front of the ancient tree, heavy cavalry soldiers, wielding a 10-meter-long chainsaw, were sharpening their tools. Suddenly, a red light indicating stop action lit up on the heavy cavalry unit. Seeing the red light, the squad leader raised an eyebrow and immediately shouted the order. Cease all actions. Then, he looked back, puzzled, wondering what was going on. Were they still going to cut down that tree? In the distance, Holos let out a heavy sigh. That was close. Fortunately, the heavy cavalry unit had intelligent recognition. Upon hearing his voice, the command was directly converted into a data command. Otherwise, it would have been disastrous. Saved, he truly saved it. On the Pioneer Star. In the research ship of Planet 1, disregarding the fear, shock, and anger emitted by the ancient tree, Holos directed the soldiers to cut down some branches. While a wise tree couldn't be cut down, branches were different. They were akin to the tree's hair. Indeed, this was no ordinary tree. Its interior had been modified to accommodate holographic projections and reading functionalities. Hollis stood in front of the electron microscope, confidently smiling as he pointed at the image on the screen. It's not easy for plant intelligence to evolve. Look at the genes here. The pioneers altered the genes of this tree, enabling it to utilize crystals and achieve a structure similar to optical fibers. The whole tree appeared to be just that, a tree on the outside, with no issues found in the tests. However, at its core, It was essentially a biological computer disguised as a tree. A biological computer, Hollis explained, and everyone instantly understood. Yet, along with that understanding, there was a hint of disappointment. This was not the natural evolution of plant intelligence, but rather an alternative artificial intelligence that unexpectedly emerged on a biological computer after being modified by the pioneers. What a pity. Hollis shook his head. Once modified, its value dropped sharply. The bad news was that the new era of engineering had no hope. The good news was that at least the theoretical foundations of biological technology held true. There was no need to restart biological technology. Cough, cough. I won't even have to drink soup upside down anymore. Hollis, what did you say? Panway suddenly turned around, looking at him with confusion. Oh, it's nothing. I was just thinking about something else, Hollis replied, shaking his head. Regardless, the research value of this tree remained very high, even if it was a bit regrettable. In the distance, the ancient tree was furious. Yes, it had intelligence. As a database storing vast amounts of genetic data, it possessed tremendous computational power, which was quite reasonable. With a touch of life's miracles, giving birth to intelligence was not surprising. Life always finds a way. However, despite having developed intelligence, it was now filled with anger. It hated not having two legs, otherwise, it could just uproot itself and run away. These bipedal beings were truly intolerable, cutting off its branches time and again. What? You say branches are like human hair, so taking a few is no big deal? I swear. It fumed. You're not a tree. How would you know? Rustling sounds echoed as the massive ancient tree shook, its canopy swaying and dense leaves making a sound like raindrops. It was surprisingly loud. Hollis and the others, even from a distance, were immediately drawn to it. What's going on? Is the tree swaying happily? Hollis grinned. I don't think it looks happy. Panway pointed at the wave detector, observing the angry wavelengths, clicking his tongue. It's definitely angry. Hollis waved his hand, pointing at the ancient tree, saying, look. It's swaying in rhythm with the music. Isn't that dancing? Panway stared at the detector and cleared his throat. Come on, are you selectively blind? The emotions on this oscilloscope are about to explode. If you translate that into the language of a certain large nation, they would be cursing your ancestors right now. And you think it's happy? He added, it's just taking advantage of the fact that the other side can't speak. But who really cared? Hollis wouldn't give up on studying this ancient tree because of that, and neither would Panway. Let it be angry. After all, we only take some branches and leaves. Anger, continue to be angry. Once you get used to it, you won't be angry anymore. Ancient tree, damn it. Chapter 267. I am too. Space is pitch black and unfathomable. Countless meteors hide in this darkness, drifting aimlessly. Even beyond the main star system, in the Kuiper Belt, there are countless meteors lurking. Their location is a place of eternal darkness. The light of stars can never reach them. Similarly, the eternal dark is also a silent place, where for billions of years, the only movements have been rays and the collisions of meteors. However, now, everything has changed. Visitors from the nearest star system have arrived here. Yet, they came and went in a hurry, leaving behind only a faint, distorted spatial trace and the remnants of shattered asteroids. The advanced technology of the alien world's faster-than-light spacecraft is impressive. The spatial distortion left in their wake has been mostly smoothed out by the energy rings at the rear of the spacecraft. This means that these traces of navigation will not last long. In fact, from a distance, it would be impossible to detect any signs of the jump here. Inside the spacecraft, it was dark in the emergency escape pod at the rear. Suddenly, gentle lights turned on. Dense text appeared on the glass covers of several aligned sleep pods. The destination has been reached, and the captain issued the awakening command, which passed verification and is now waking up. With a hiss, the tightly sealed hatch suddenly popped open. The gas in the sleep pod was instantly expelled and recovered by the nearby gas circulation device. A few people lying in the sleep pod slowly opened their eyes. Zhou Yuan, Sun Wang, and others instinctively sat up. We've arrived at the destination. Stretching, Zhou Yuan felt a bit more awake and quickly turned around. But to his surprise, Fang Jing had not yet sat up. Hey, where's Fang Jing? Zhou Yuan was startled awake in an instant. This effect was far stronger than the waking agent beside him. He hurriedly looked down. Fang Jing was still lying in the sleep pod. What is going on? Medical personnel. Come check. Sun Wang said nothing and quickly rushed over to use the medical equipment in the sleep pod for an examination. Captain, all indicators are normal. He just fainted. After speaking, Sun Wang glanced at Fang Jing with a complex expression. He had heard Zhou Ge mention before that when reaching a new world, Fang Jing would wake up after arriving, and then faint. But this time, it was the opposite. He fainted before waking. It was a complete mess. Is there really no problem? Zhou Yuan felt a bit worried. This situation was somewhat different. No problem, brain activity is very high, and all bodily structures show no damage. Sun Wang gave a direct assurance. All right, then let us wait here. Seeing the medical personnel's confident response, Zhou Yuan was no longer worried. He turned to the air and shouted, Assistant, prepare some food for us. The assistant responded to Commander Zhou Yuan's order, announcing that the recovery meal was being delivered. Above the cabin, the broadcast echoed instantly. This is the onboard assistant, capable of handling various situations aboard the spacecraft. Now, it serves as the best support for the three captains. However, the introduction of artificial intelligence aboard has brought some issues, which the scientific community is currently working hard to resolve. But for now, the benefits of having AI on board outweigh the drawbacks. On the spacecraft, Zhou Yuan and the others gathered around Fang Jing's cryogenic chamber and began to eat the recovery meal. Although the meal was light, it was incredibly aromatic. It seemed designed to restore taste and smell, and the entire meal was, in a word, explosively flavorful. It had that subtle taste that exploded with various aromas, akin to having freshly bloomed flowers stuffed right up your nose. Thus, a peculiar scene unfolded on the spacecraft. Zhou Yuan and the others, surrounding Fang Jing, eagerly took a bite from their meal boxes, and their expressions shifted from anticipation to indifference, then to discomfort. As they dug in, the fragrance wafted through the air. Fang Jing, lying in the cryogenic chamber, instinctively began to sniff. In the dark, Fang Jing entered his consciousness space, a place he was quite familiar with. Though he was puzzled as to why he had arrived there directly, suddenly, something strange happened. Sniff, 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 sniff. Fang Jing's nose twitched continuously, and he wore a ghostly expression, exclaiming, "What is going on? Why is there a smell of sweet and sour pork, along with flavors of twice-cooked pork, fragrant pot, and roasted sweet potatoes? What the heck is happening?" The aroma was becoming increasingly intense, almost overwhelming. Fang Jing felt quite confused. How could he smell the aroma of food in this dark space? Was he hungry, or was the machine hungry? Clearing his throat, he confidently walked through the dark area to the machine illuminated by pure white light. With a cheeky smile, he leaned slightly towards the machine and softly asked, "Hey, buddy, are you hungry?" A flock of crows flew by, and he added, "Well, I'm not hungry, so where is this smell coming from?" Fang Jing was puzzled. However, the machine did not wait for him to ponder. On the complex machinery, the third large white suddenly turned red. A new world has been unlocked. Let me see the conditions to open the spatial door. Fang Jing took a deep breath and connected his consciousness with the red dot. Instantly, an image formed in his mind. It was a piece of black stone. And then, nothing happened. Fang Jing, what is this thing? As he witnessed the condition, he opened his eyes in bewilderment. This time, the prompt was particularly strange. It was a piece of black stone. However, his confusion didn't last long. As he looked around, he became even more bewildered, because Zhou Yuan and the others were gathered around his cryogenic chamber, eating. Are you guys serious? Eating around me? Am I a furnace? But it smells so good. Although their expressions seemed somewhat subtle, that fragrance was familiar. Truly too familiar. Isn't that the smell I just detected? Goodness, so it was you. Oh, Fang Jing, you're awake. Come and have some recovery meal. Zhou Yuan noticed Fang Jing was awake, glanced at the data on the medical equipment, and, finding everything fine, he couldn't help but smile. He pointed to the unopened nutritional meal in his hand and grandly introduced, "New space food, a recovery meal with an overwhelming aroma. Come, it smells so good." Fang Jing was just tempted by the fragrance, took the box, and tore open the packaging. As soon as the packaging was torn, the aroma rushed out, making Fang Jing swallow hard. So fragrant. He picked up his chopsticks and took a big bite, then spat it out. Fang Jing suddenly looked up, saw Zhou Yuan smile, and immediately understood. Goodness, you made it so fragrant just to cover up that bland taste, right? This is a scam, pure scam. This new space recovery meal. Just bury it. It has the aroma, it has the color, it has the taste. Chapter 268. Matching issues in this universe, at the Sky military base on Mars. In the conference room, a video conference was underway. Military representatives Yu stood at the podium, his expression serious. In front of him were representatives from the 3 branches of the military, the head of the 237 program, and various prominent figures involved in the plans. They all wore serious expressions, especially the representatives from the military academy and the 237 program's scientific committee, whose hair was disheveled, and their eyes had bloodshot veins. If you looked closely, you would see they were still in the laboratory. Our spaceship is currently facing a very serious problem. And this issue has become even more impossible to ignore after the introduction of artificial intelligence. Zhuyu supported himself on the podium with his left hand, clenched his right fist, and spoke with a powerful voice. Crew members, we can no longer keep up with the response rhythm of artificial intelligence. The methods used to operate spaceships in the naval era of Earth are now partially unsuitable. We must make adaptive changes. As he finished speaking, everyone on site was reviewing the materials he had sent. Elder Zhu took a glance and was the first to speak. General Zhua, I have looked at the virtual training exercise report you provided. This problem indeed needs urgent resolution. In the 567th exercise, facing the enemy's planet-destroying neutron beam, the artificial intelligence of ship number 6 suggested using the hull to block the attack, causing the attack angle to deflect and avoid the fate of the mother planet being destroyed. The entire crew was ready for this action, but due to the sudden attack, according to the ship's command level regulations, this order could only be issued by the captain. It was precisely because of the delay of a few tenths of a second in conveying this order that ship number 6 missed the opportunity to take action. Moreover, in the 602nd exercise, during the evasion of an enemy attack by ship number 9, it also resulted in the destruction of the ship due to the few tenths of a second delay in communication between the artificial intelligence and the captain's command. Elder Zhu briefly recounted the situation in the documents, scanned the room, and continued, there are many such situations, I won't reiterate them all. But, with a serious tone, he firmly stated, it is this fraction of a second that has actually altered the course of the war. I absolutely cannot allow our fleet As we face interstellar wars and fleets that engage in relentless and merciless battles, to have such a significant risk, the 567th drill showed us the warriors on Ship No. 6 who dared to sacrifice themselves for the protection of our home planet. But it also sent chills down my spine. What if it wasn't just a drill? The safety of our soldiers, our home planet, our country, and countless compatriots. Bang. After speaking, Zhu slammed the table, his expression turning serious and stern. The issue of delay in matching artificial intelligence with human commands must be resolved. Furthermore, the principle that the command authority of the three captains is greater than that of artificial commands cannot be altered in the slightest. After Zhu finished speaking, the representatives of the Space Force nodded in agreement. There was no mistake. This was exactly what they wanted to convey. Following this, everyone's gaze immediately shifted to the representatives from the Academy of Sciences and the 237 Program Scientific Committee. Sensing the gravity of the situation, the two representatives cleared their throats and nodded vigorously, looking somewhat fatigued as they said, after General's report was released, we immediately began discussions. And we will definitely resolve this issue. Indeed, with all our efforts, we can solve this problem. The issue faced by our cosmic fleet has no historical precedent. Even the engineers of ancient cosmic civilizations have no reference information. Perhaps they encountered similar issues in the past and resolved them well. But it has been tens of thousands of years since they dominated the galaxy. During these tens of thousands of years, they have been bullying the weaker ones, engaging in asymmetric warfare, and their military technology has strayed far from its original path. Yes, it has indeed strayed. Prolonged asymmetric warfare leads to the distorted growth of armed forces. Just like the situation of a certain nation in this universe, after several Middle Eastern wars. Prolonged asymmetric naval battles surprisingly gave rise to a distorted creation like the Zumwalt, which shifted from naval to land. Originally, this vessel excelled at asymmetric naval warfare. In other words, bullying nations without a comparable naval defense was quite easy. However, with the rise of naval power in the Eastern nation, such weapons born from asymmetric warfare immediately revealed their flaws. Because in symmetric warfare, they have no viable ground to survive. Thus, this nation had to turn back in embarrassment. Watching the Eastern nation produce an epic-making 055 destroyer, and silently began designing vessels to match it. This nation had only dominated the Earth's oceans for a few decades. And yet it ended up like this. The engineers had dominated the galaxy for tens of thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years. Since they became a dominant civilization, they have only bullied others, engaging exclusively in asymmetric warfare. Therefore, when this universe inquired about how to resolve the delay issue between artificial intelligence and command personnel on ships, Polis was baffled. Is this really a problem? Does this issue need to be resolved? Please, we fight the enemy by charging directly when possible. If not, we use long-range energy weapons and then charge. What? Are you still considering the issue of command coordination? Fine. Let us just pretend I didn't ask. Yes, engineers don't need to consider this issue. That's because, in the galaxy, the civilizations that could threaten you were already eradicated during your glorious era. Now, in the alien world of the galaxy, those minor threats don't require your concern. However, this universe is different. Who knows if in that parallel universe we suddenly encounter equally strong or even stronger enemies? Humanity must consider this issue. We might use neural connection technology. An expert from Project 237 pondered for a moment and suddenly proposed a suggestion. The fleet commander could stay immersed in a solution, using neural connection technology to sense the entire ship. This way, he could achieve zero latency with the artificial intelligence. This plan is great. The military personnel nodded vigorously. However, while it's a good idea, if we adopt this technology, our original intention of preventing issues with artificial intelligence would change. Scholars from the computing group frowned. If something went wrong with the AI, it could directly control the captain. The risk is too high. We can set permissions. Not appropriate. The AI could not only have internal issues, but could also be directly controlled by powerful enemies, just like we control the transport ship from Malt. If it's connected, the risk is too great. The transport ship from Malt was directly controlled by the AI, and by the time they realized it, they had been completely deceived. Now, the research group finds itself in a dilemma. They need to use the AI while also guarding against it, all while ensuring zero latency in command issuance. This is simply making it difficult for them. The scientist in charge of this project felt overwhelmed. How on earth do we solve this problem? Chapter 269. Change them all. Regarding the issue of delay in commands from the artificial intelligence and the three-person command system on the ship, the scholars in the scientific committee of Project 237 are almost going crazy. This is a classic case of wanting both. But scientists cannot fulfill it, so they can only settle for a compromise. Ultimately, the scholars adopted the sensory technology from the Pacific Rim world and limited access for the AI. However, before implementation, they made significant modifications. The sensory technology from the other side had too many issues. The ship currently uses a three-person command mode from the Navy. And it's not feasible to assign triplets to every ship to enhance coordination, right? That would be too strange. So modifications are necessary, extensive modifications. Comfort level, synesthetic direction. Connection method. Fortunately, this universe not only has synesthetic technology from a certain region, but also digital life technology from another world, biotechnology from alien engineers, and shared data from the minds of ancient civilizations. Thus, a synesthetic technology that combines the strengths of various approaches has quickly emerged. This technology allows all personnel to enter a synesthetic state, which essentially connects the brains of the command personnel and only accepts electrical signals for orders to the ship. All signals are received, and even the contents of synesthetic memories are omitted. It is better to maintain some distance between individuals. A person can have many thoughts in a second, both good and bad, benevolent and malevolent. Excessive sharing can seriously affect command efficiency. After all, who knows what the other party is thinking? What if they just watched a horror movie and are suddenly thinking about what it would be like to stab you? Perhaps this is just a fleeting thought they have in a second, which they wouldn't act upon. However, once in a complete synesthetic state, that thought becomes known. Wouldn't that be an accident? Therefore, only confirmed orders for the ship are shared, and everything else remains unchanged from the external world. After using this technology, commanders can directly issue commands to the ship through electrical signals from their brains. Coupled with the quantum communication command lines on the ship, the entire process has minimized delays, eliminating any intermediaries profiting from the difference. However, the design is such that, due to the nascent technology, the packet loss rate of this synesthetic connection is still somewhat high. For example, in a synesthetic laboratory, several crew members wearing devices are simulating piloting a spacecraft. The captain commands, neutron beam, medium power, fire. The munitions officer commands, weapon base 6, execute the order, prepare to fire. The entire process is completed without delay, almost instantaneously. But the problem arises during this time when packet loss occurs. The munitions officer, with a thought, is medium power enough? The power the captain used last time for target practice was quite conservative. Upon hearing this, the captain immediately fell into doubt. The AI assistant suggested medium power, which should be fine, right? It should be fine. Shouldn't it be fine? In short, the captain's mind went through a struggle. Many scholars in the observation chamber exchanged glances at this scene. This packet loss issue must be resolved quickly, otherwise, problems will inevitably arise. Among the Air Force, there are quite a few female comrades. Although the scholars firmly believe that soldiers can control themselves, they cannot control what their minds think. Packet loss will lead to embarrassment. The kind of embarrassment that would make one want to change planets to live. Although one could really change to live on another planet. No one wants to face social death for no reason. In the city of Eternal Day on Mars, Commander Wu, dressed in uniform, walks slowly down the street. After the development over these days, the first city on Mars has become lively. In the center of Eternal Day City, it is just like a bustling metropolis on Earth, with skyscrapers standing tall and extreme prosperity. However, the difference is that the entire city has no road system. There are only park streets for citizens to stroll and shop. As for transportation, it's all about flying cars and a three-dimensional traffic network. Moreover, the design and planning of the city are quite redundant. No matter how many people come, there won't be any traffic jams. Those who enjoy rural life can live on the outskirts. Those who prefer city life can reside in the inner circle, and those who seek excitement can stay near the nearby mountains. There are various types of housing and a wide range of options to choose from. Hey, Wu Tong. In the distance, the first mate on the ship waved at Wu Tong and called out, Zhou Peng. Old Wu, this place is really thriving. Zhou Peng ran over to Wu Tong. Glancing around, the city is so prosperous. In the distance, the aerial buses are gliding slowly in the sunlight, their shells reflecting the bright golden rays, reaching heights equal to skyscrapers. This would have been considered a tourist attraction back on Earth, and now it has become part of daily life. Yes, hey Zhou Peng. Weren't you planning to bring your family to Mars? Wu Tong also looked around, enjoying the fragrance of the flowers in the park, and suddenly remembered something. Hee. I do have that idea. Zhou Peng stretched lazily, watching a few children running around in the grass, and said with a smile, the fleet is increasingly leaning towards Mars, so I might as well bring my family here. It's even better. Old Wu, you should hurry too. I know, once the spaceship is modified, we'll head to the command center for a changeover. We'll write the application together then. Wu Tong nodded slowly. It's clear to anyone, no? Any normal person can see that the focus of development for the Eastern powers is increasingly shifting towards the Mars orbit. The current trend is that the territories on Earth are only serving as political centers, while Mars is becoming the future hub for economy, military, resources, and many other areas. Speaking of modifications, what is the situation lately? Zhou Peng scratched his head in confusion and replied, a large number of ships have been taken for major modifications. There must be some technological breakthrough. We're set to attend training the day after tomorrow. Wu Tong was also puzzled. They were on duty when suddenly called back, saying that the ships were due for major modifications. This isn't just 1 or 2 ships. It's half of the fleet being recalled for significant upgrades. With such a recall rate, anyone unaware might think preparations for war are beginning. But it's impossible to prepare for war. Just say, who are we going to fight? In the entire solar system, who would require such a show of force? For instance, the shielded ship. If you take it over, who can break its defenses? Just stop there. Tear the shield open, and crank the power to the max, hovering in the air, even if someone were to bomb it with nuclear weapons. It wouldn't matter at all. This kind of strength, unless fighting aliens, why would there be a need for preparations? As for aliens, that is even less likely. The only possibility is that this technology is disruptive, and with the space forces in play, since the robot production line can be powered up, let's just modify everything at once. Hey, it's already the space age. Why are we still being so stingy with military funding like in the old days? With a wave of the hand, aside from the basic number of warships, drag everything else out for modifications. I'm not short on money right now. Chapter 270, Social Death? I don't want that. In a few months, there haven't been any major changes in this universe. However, in the world of JoJo, there have been remarkable breakthroughs by Zerial. The research on extending the lifespan using the ancestor virus has shifted from laboratory mice to primate macaques, genuine gangetic macaques, specifically for experimentation. However, this research isn't progressing quickly. The growth rate of macaques is very slow, and results will take at least a few years. This reflects the true nature of such research. Extending lifespan isn't something that can be accomplished overnight or solely through computer simulations. Ultimately, it requires animal testing to provide results. Engineer Horos is also quite curious about this experiment, although he has conducted similar experiments in the past, and even managed to live over 150 years thanks to longevity experiments from thousands of years ago. This particular research had long ceased due to the crisis of racial decline. In fact, even the data was lost. So, regarding lifespan, Horos currently has no need for it, but he will certainly have a need in the future. Of course, since he is interested, Zerial does not hold back. Since he is here, let us take a couple of blood samples first. Don't forget, the genes of engineers and humans are highly similar. Perhaps data from previous experiments can be found in each other's genes. Aside from this major event, the time during Fang Jing's absence has been quite peaceful. However, as the transport ship is about to return, this calm is instantly shattered. At the launch center in Houston, despite the fact that the former aerospace achievements in this universe have been completely suppressed, they still exist, right? Today, the almost unemployed staff at the launch center are bored, sipping coffee in the control room. Suddenly, the detector emits a sharp scream. Again? How many times has it been this month? The staff reacts with indifference, mindlessly stirring their spoon. This sound has become so familiar over the past few months. It's probably another signal from a probe launched over a decade ago, reporting an unidentified flying object detected in orbit. Of course, everyone knows this unidentified flying object is a spacecraft from a certain Eastern nation. Because of this, the staff shows no reaction whatsoever. Ugh, how annoying. Helplessly dropping the spoon, the staff looks up and prepares to turn off the sound. However, as he approaches and looks down closely, he realizes something. Wait, why is the direction of the signal reversed? Previous signals were always from the same orbit or a known source. But this time, the signal source is actually from outside the solar system. The staff looked at the signal source, then at the position of the sun, and rubbed their eyes vigorously. Am I seeing things? After murmuring to themselves a couple of times, they opened their eyes again. What the? The position of the signal source had moved at least over 1,000,000 kilometers. When they opened their eyes again, they couldn't help but curse. It hadn't even been a second, and the signal source had jumped more than 1,000,000 kilometers. This thing is flying faster than light. What on earth? The staff in Houston were dumbfounded. Not only was this thing flying faster than light, but the trajectory seemed to be heading straight for the detector's transverse wave. And it was completely unmasked, with the signal crystal clear. Quick, report this. Could it be aliens? The staff trembled in fear and shakily transmitted the communication to the minister. In the command room of the launch center, the minister calmly said he was aware and hung up the phone. Faster than light. And this minister wasn't even surprised. This is something that humanity at this stage couldn't possibly create, and it's coming in from the outer solar system, and no one is dealing with it? The minister thought, what's there to be surprised about? The staff didn't know that he was already aware. A few months ago, their detector had found that a faster-than-light spacecraft had launched from Mars. What was laid out before him were the data from that time. This speed, this signal, was exactly the same as the previous reaction. What? You say, how did they detect this signal? Come on, they are behind, not dead. With such a big fluctuation, the spatial ripples caused by the jump, the energy emitted is still very obvious within the solar system, right? If not, with such a significant light curve, they still can't see it within the solar system? Damn it, a faster-than-light spaceship has already appeared. The minister's expression was blank, but inside he was already venting his frustration. This is definitely not an alien civilization's relic or ruins. He would eat his hat if it were. The transport ship was fast, and after reaching the Kuiper Belt, it slowly exited the jump mode and entered the coasting phase. The entire journey to the interstellar dust zone was uneventful. By the time the ship's speed approached 0, it had already reached the docking area of the asteroid belt. Fang Jing and Zhou Yuan, along with their team, leisurely walked out. Old Zhu, come, look at the local specialties I brought. Approaching the welcoming crowd, Fang Jing carefully took out a small transparent box. Inside the transparent box was a small stone. Half of the stone was the ordinary gray-white color of a regular rock, but the other half shimmered with colorful light under the reflection of the lights. What is this? Old Zhu was taken aback for a moment, and then realizing. He pointed at the small box and laughed heartily. This is something extraordinary, a stone from the interstellar dust zone 2 light-years away, highly collectible. Of course. I selected this carefully. Fang Jing nodded. After searching through the meteorite pile for a long time, I think it would be better to choose a pure meteorite the size of a grinding disc and turn it into a golden toilet. That would be much more impressive. Zhou Yuan shook his head, clicking his tongue. Only Fang Jing could pick a piece as a souvenir, and guess what? He chose a diamond the size of a thumb. There were no size restrictions. If it were him, he would have gone for a gold meteorite, using it as a toilet, just to experience the feeling of treating gold as dirt. Fang Jing rolled his eyes. How vulgar. All right, let's head back to the base. Seeing Fang Jing and Zhou Yuan gearing up for a new round of debate about the gold toilet's tastefulness, Old Zhu's mouth twitched. Forget it. I can't bear to watch this. Old Zhu, the hints from the new world are quite strange this time. Unable to argue with Zhou Yuan, Fang Jing decisively slipped away to Old Zhu's side and said with some confusion, how should I describe a stone? Should I talk about its shape or its color? No, that won't help. A stone? Old Zhu furrowed his brows, thought for a moment, then relaxed and smiled. It should be a mineral. It's all right. The Institute has just received a new batch of equipment. As long as you can visualize it in your mind, it can draw it out for you. Oh, there's such equipment? Fang Jing's eyes widened. Oh no, what if my mind conjures up something embarrassing? Wait, I can't think that way right now. Otherwise, I'm doomed. Chapter 271. It's time to depart again. In the end, Fang Jing didn't embarrass himself. The equipment that could create images based on thoughts was quite advanced and precise. The concerns he had were non-existent. After putting on a device similar to a virtual reality headset, Fang Jing only needed to recall the black stone from the hint. Click. In just a second, the image was printed out. A black mineral? In the command room, many experts stared at the three-dimensional image on the holographic projection, stroking their chins. This hint was as good as having no hint at all. The assistants couldn't provide an accurate depiction. Black mineral was too broad. Tan Wei, who had watched numerous films over the years and even wrote detailed analysis reports, shook his head at the assistant's announcement. It could be a mineral. Or it might not be. If it is a mineral, it involves mining, and there are countless movies related to mining, like Avatar and Stargate, too many to narrow down. Since they couldn't pinpoint it, Old Zhu lightly tapped the table, glanced at everyone present, and said seriously, so, make corresponding plans for all movies related to stones. Yes. Old Zhu's order was met with immediate responses from the expert team. They were quite familiar with making plans. Tan Wei and others had already compiled plans for all movies in this universe, regardless of genre, even romance films. Good. Old Zhu nodded, turned to Fang Jing, and said with a smile, you should focus on recovery training these days. We'll prepare and can get started. Just in time, you have new equipment. The expert group began their busy preparations for the upcoming journey. Fang Jing, meanwhile, followed Zhou Yuan to check out his new gear. Having connections like this meant everything was straightforward. Logistics and planning were meticulously handled by others. In the maintenance room, Fang Jing followed Zhou Yuan in, and as soon as he stepped inside, his mouth dropped open. There, in the room, stood a tall, silver-black powered armor. No, at this height. It could even be considered a small mecha. The black exterior, complemented by light gray accents, made the armor appear extremely stern under the lights, like a towering basalt mountain, exuding an overwhelming presence. Just standing there, it resembled a steel monument, commanding admiration from all. The materials were precise to the atomic level, with a design as rugged as heavy machinery. The perfect fusion of finesse and robustness. It was even more extraordinary than heavy cavalry armor. What was the name of this armor? Fang Jing let out a slight breath, his eyes filled with stars. This was incredibly cool. Who was the designer? I need to give them extra praise. Colonel Fang, this full-coverage powered armor is called Xian Deng. The mechanical voice of the assistant AI echoed in the maintenance room. Beginning the introduction, Xian Deng features a fully armored structural steel design, with a built-in fourth-generation controllable nuclear fusion battery, in addition to the weapons typical of heavy cavalry. It also includes a miniaturized neutron beam emitter, an intelligent assistance system, and an energy shield. Indeed, the key feature was the energy shield. In terms of defensive capability, the structure of Xian Deng was thicker, which meant the armor was definitely stronger. However, even the strongest armor could not elevate itself to a higher tier. What was truly remarkable was that the design department had found a way to fit in a few more fusion batteries and equip the armor with an energy shield. This energy shield could withstand impacts from kinetic projectiles equivalent to battleship main cannons, as well as all standard infantry weapons and some naval weapons. Wasn't this akin to a turtle shell? As soon as the assistant finished speaking, Zhou Yuan's eyes lit up. This was like a steel turtle. Once the energy shield was activated, it could intercept some naval weapons. Incredible. Just imagine, during the battleship era, having an infantry weapon that could block the bombardment of your secondary cannons. Wasn't that remarkable? This was the culmination of the 237 project's technology, produced without regard for cost. The assistant elaborated on Zhou Yuan's implications, and in an instant, both Fang Jing and Zhou Yuan understood. No wonder this armor was so powerful, it made sense now. With no cost constraints, the terrifying level of technological prowess in this universe needed no further proof. What? The weapons using neutron beams were too complex to produce with current industrial lines? Hey, stop the spaceship processing for a moment. I need to borrow your atomic knife machine tool. I'll carve it out piece by piece. With armor equipped with neutron beam emitters, how could the opponent even fight back? Just thinking about that scenario sent shivers down Zhou Yuan's spine. If they encountered an enemy with infantry strength, the opponent would have mediocre firearms, decent energy weapons, with power that was acceptable. Fang Jing, with a cold expression, would pull out the neutron beam emitter. While it might not reach battleship cannon levels, it could easily shatter hundreds of meters with a single shot. Hundreds of meters. Shooting at the ground could directly create a lake. No matter what lies ahead, the question is whether you can handle it. The training module has a battery specifically designed for neutron beam firing, but there are only 3 available, so please use them cautiously. The assistant spoke softly, with a hint of simulated laughter, addressing Fang Jing. Additionally, if you encounter a situation that cannot be resolved with 3 neutron beam shots, please evacuate promptly. Zhou Yuan, standing nearby, was stunned. He thought the assistant was telling them a bad joke. Honestly, there are very few problems that cannot be solved by a neutron beam shot. And if things can't be resolved, listen to your comrades. If one shot doesn't work, it's time to run. Of course, Fang Jing wasn't foolish. He recognized the assistant's obvious joking tone. He couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, the assistant added, "Of course, that was a joke. Under normal circumstances, if one neutron beam shot cannot resolve the issue, I recommend you evacuate immediately or call for a long-range strike from the fleet. The permissions have been transferred, the checks have been passed, and the logistics team has temporarily locked down the main weapon. Colonel Fang Jing, you may begin testing now." Bang! The overhead lights in the maintenance room turned on. Fang Jing started his training to adapt to the combat armor. As for why the logistics team had locked down the neutron beam weapons in advance, sorry, everyone involved in Project 237 really didn't want to be busy and suddenly disappear. Everyone was quite excited about their research and had no thoughts of leaving this world yet. Meanwhile, Fang Jing threw himself into training, not daring to relax in the slightest to ensure his safety. On the other side, the expert team was going wild. In a short time, with the assistant's help, any movie featuring black mineral rocks or mining was thoroughly analyzed, resulting in detailed assessments. These analyses were crucial for Fang Jing's safety and left no room for error. By the time the plan was completed, 3 days had passed. Fang Jing had been training both online and offline, playing several rounds in the virtual reality game while completely mastering the combat armor. Next, it was time to set off. Chapter 272. Wow, blue-braided people. All logistics personnel were ready. In the command room, Zhu Lao, Zhao Guangyao, Zhou Zhe, and others were fixated on the surveillance screens. In front of them lay a huge stack of printed plans, with numerous backups on the computer. In the disinfection room, all logistics personnel were prepared. Medical support, equipment logistics, fire control, and biological defense were all set in a spacious disinfection area, with groups of people surrounding it, leaving an open space in the center. As the sound of the airlock releasing filled the room, everyone turned to look at the entrance. Fang Jing, accompanied by Zhou Yuan and others, slowly walked out. The crowd on both sides parted automatically, their gazes filled with respect, anticipation, hope, and trust, all directed at Fang Jing. Under the spotlight, with honor upon him, Fang Jing nodded slowly in response to the gazes, gradually making his way to the center of the disinfection room. The mission was about to begin, and the final check was underway. The protagonist made his entrance, and the logistics team immediately sprang into action. Hundreds of personnel moved in unison, each fulfilling their role with no hint of chaos, everything in perfect order. The energy registration for the advanced fusion battery was completed. The intelligence system had been calibrated. The mechanical transmission was functioning properly. The armor shield equipment was fully operational. The neutron beam weapon lock had been released. The mecha inspection was flawless. All weapon permissions for the armor had been lifted, and the final check was complete. Fang Jing took a deep breath. Even though he had crossed into new worlds many times before, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of nervousness at this critical moment. After all, in a new world, everything was unknown. Standing still, Fang Jing extended his arm. Logistics personnel quickly stepped forward to assist him in donning the fitted exoskeleton. His arms, legs, and chest were enveloped by the precisely fitted exoskeleton. This was his second layer of defense. After this, the nearby logistics staff began to open the cockpit of the advanced armor. Inside the cockpit, the shock absorption system was extremely complex and advanced. This was the key equipment that ensured Fang Jing wouldn't be killed by impacts. "Major Fang, please." A logistics member gestured to guide him. Everything was ready. All right. Nodding slightly, Fang Jing took a step forward and turned his back to enter the advanced armor. The moment he entered, the brain-machine interface connected with the mecha. Fang Jing's senses instantly expanded, enveloping the entire body of the armor. Now, he was one with the advanced armor. "Welcome to your login." With a clang, the previously bowed head of the armor suddenly emitted a low hum from its silent joints. The cold and fierce armor slowly raised its head. The system had been activated. Fang Jing nodded slowly at the monitor, and in the next moment, the massive armor vanished from the sterilization chamber. He was on the move. Pay attention to the activity in the sterilization chamber and have everyone step back a bit. In the monitoring room, everyone took a deep breath. The new world was about to arrive. Pitch black, complete darkness. Yet amidst this darkness, faint starlight flickered. In the vast, silent universe, this was an unfamiliar area, filled with meteors. A high-speed meteor was initially on a collision course through the area, without any obstacles. Suddenly, a massive shadow appeared in its path. Bang! As the meteor collided, it erupted into blinding sparks. Beep, 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 detecting high-speed impact. The back armor had already withstood the attack, and was now searching for the source. Fang Jing was puzzled by the intelligence system's assessment. Was someone attacking him? Kinetic weapon? No, he had just crossed over. What was happening? Without hesitation, and driven by the instinct for self-preservation, Fang Jing instantly activated the energy shield and cautiously looked around. The result? All around was pitch black. There was nothing. Was this in space? Fang Jing was now even more astonished. This was the first time he had directly crossed into space. Damn it. If he wasn't prepared with a spacesuit, wouldn't he be doomed? Without a pressurized spacesuit, appearing directly in the sky would mean instant explosion. That would be a real explosion. His lungs would burst immediately. At this moment, the intelligence system made an assessment. The attack target is suspected to be a high-speed meteorite, rushing towards him the moment it appeared. Phew. With the answer in mind, Fang Jing immediately breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't an enemy attack, that was good. However, right now, Fang Jing was feeling a bit of a headache. Seriously, just throwing me into space like this, what's the deal? At least in that other world. I was thrown on a planet LV-233. There must be some plot objective nearby, either a spaceship or a planet. Fang Jing was certain of that. But first things first, he needed to determine his position in the universe. He had to check if he was still in the galaxy. After pausing for a second, he immediately began to act. The intelligent assistant was detecting his location, locking onto Polaris, and drawing a 3D star map. His location was confirmed. He was on the orbit of planet Alpha B4 in the Centauri system. The positions of 3 stars had been determined, and the solar system's position was locked. Relevant settings were being retrieved from the database. Alpha Centauri. Fang Jing couldn't help but exclaim. This was a frequent alien spawn point in science fiction works. Because it is only 43 light years away from the solar system, many science fiction writers imagined this place as a potential location for extraterrestrial civilizations. Of course, when mentioning Alpha Centauri, people from the eastern country would probably first think of the 3-body problem. When Fang Jing heard this name, he felt a chill down his spine, almost wanting to teleport back. No other reason, just fear. If he really crossed over to the 3-body world and ended up at the 3-body headquarters, wouldn't he be doomed if he didn't run? But on second thought, if it were the 3-body, it wouldn't match up at all. As we know, the Alpha Centauri star system consists of 3 stars, A, B, and C. The C star is named Proxima Centauri, while A and B are just called that for now, without any nicknames. So it just doesn't match. He was currently on the orbit of the 4th planet of Alpha B, right? And the prototype of the 3-body planet is Proxima B, which is planet B of Alpha C. The distance between these two is not just a bit far. It's incredibly far. The distance between B and Proxima Centauri exceeds normal imagination, reaching up to 130,000 astronomical units. In other words, this place cannot possibly be the 3-body world. However, Alpha Centauri B4 seemed somewhat familiar. Wait, Fang Jing suddenly realized. At the same time, the intelligence system also provided a precise answer. According to the survey, this might be the movie Avatar, as the Pandora planet is based on planet B4. Now, the surveying instrument had confirmed the location of Pandora, about a 6-hour journey from his current position. It really is Avatar. Fang Jing's eyes widened. Wow, blue-skinned, braided people. It actually is this world. Chapter 273, A Rain of Fire, Good Fortune. In the pitch-black space, Fang Jing took the opportunity to reflect on the story of a certain film while drifting in his mecha. In short, it's about the Na-6 people on the planet Pandora resisting the invasion of extraterrestrial humans, ultimately achieving a hard-fought victory under the leadership of a human traitor. In this movie, humans play the role of the antagonists. They covet the room temperature superconducting or on Pandora. Suddenly, Fang Jing's eyes widened. Or, the condition for opening the space gate must be this thing. Thinking of this, he instantly became excited. Room temperature superconducting materials are groundbreaking. Even now, after traversing several worlds, this universe has not produced room temperature superconducting materials. Currently, the ships used in this universe and the JoJo world still rely on high-temperature superconducting controllable nuclear fusion. If room temperature superconducting materials can be developed, controllable nuclear fusion will become more compact and powerful. The efficiency of electricity transmission will easily surpass current limits. Controllable nuclear fusion can not only become the main power source for faster-than-light engines, it could even help weapons in this universe easily break through power bottlenecks. The benefits for medicine, electronics, and communications are countless. This kind of material has not been developed in the wandering regions, and the biomechanical approach in the alien world shows no signs of progress. Even the Pacific Rim hasn't completed controllable nuclear fusion yet. Therefore, room temperature superconducting or is unique across several worlds. As he thought about this, Fang Jing felt a surge of determination. No wonder the big companies in the original story would rather forcefully seize it than let it go. Who wouldn't want to mine this, or once they knew about it? Just like oil on Earth a decade ago. Who wouldn't want to monopolize it once they found it? Why have there been endless wars in certain regions? Or, room temperature superconducting, or, Fang Jing swallowed hard. He absolutely had to find a way to acquire this, or, the first step is to land on Pandora, confirm the current timeline, and avoid any conflicts as much as possible. Fang Jing exhaled and silently accelerated the mecha. The mecha, like heavy cavalry, possesses planetary landing capabilities and orbital drop armor. The only thing supporting Fang Jing's decision to continue exploring and confirm the timeline is unmatched military strength. Comparing the military might of the humans in the film and the Na-6, one is entering the interstellar age while the other is in the cold weapons tribal era. What a joke. Fang Jing, clad in his mecha, was not afraid at all. He was equipped with an energy shield. ZZZZ. The intelligence system detected a radio signal and was analyzing it. The content was as follows. Attention, orbital spacecraft. The company's ship is approaching Southgate 2. Please prepare for contact. Understood. Although the intercepted information contained only these 2 sentences, Fang Jing pondered deeply. He had some guesses about the timeline. That ship might very well be the one carrying the male protagonist. In other words, the story of Avatar may be about to begin. There's still time. How far are we from the planet? 2 hours. Pay attention to the light circle in the upper left corner. The planet is on its trajectory. Alright, accelerate. Understood. Switching to full speed. Oh wow, this speed is exhilarating. Beneath a towering ancient tree, the Gnostics, with blue skin, long braided hair, a flexible tail, and animal ears. Live around the tree. Children are playing. Warriors are galloping on majestic horses. Women are foraging for fruits among the trees. And brave souls are soaring through the sky on their Ikran. For thousands of years, the Gnostics have lived carefree on this land, under the protection and blessings of their goddess, enjoying the gifts of nature, and eventually, like all beings on this planet, they die and return to the embrace of the goddess. They are a race born from nature, reveling in its generosity, and ultimately returning to it. However, today is destined to be extraordinary. As the sky gradually darkens, the spiritual leader, the female Chief Moya, opens her eyes in shock at the ancient tree where the Gnostics reside. Before her, a dandelion-like fluff, glowing with a faint white light, flies out from the crevices of the trunk, slowly drifting away from the great tree. Moya's pupils constrict sharply as she stands up suddenly, following the floating fluff, and quickly walks outside. More and more tribespeople notice this phenomenon and follow their chief. Eventually, the drifting fluff reaches the base of the giant tree and flies straight up into the sky. The Gnostics all look up, trying to understand what message their goddess has for them. The sky is darkening, night is approaching, and it's completely clear. There's nothing there. The tribal leader Atukin furrows his brow, glances at his wife, and quietly asks, "What does the goddess signify?" Shoo. Moya raises her finger to signal her husband to be quiet, then continues to gaze at the sky. Looking up, the only thought in Moya's mind is the invaders from the sky. Those people don't understand them at all. They suddenly came from another planet, only to arrogantly attempt to teach them. The Gnostics, in their friendly nature, had previously interacted with them for a while. But those sky people only had their own views in mind, insisting on building hospitals and schools for them, demanding they relocate and leave the forest. Yet, the Gnostics are a race born from nature. How could their souls return to the goddess if they leave the forest? This reasoning is beyond the comprehension of the sky people. They cannot accept the Gnostics' perspective. As Moya puts it, the sky people are like cups already filled with water. There is no need for further interaction. And now, the sky appears once again. What message does the goddess have? Look, Chief, there's a flash in the sky. It's a fireball. Is it those damn sky people? They appeared like this too. Is this the goddess's message? Suddenly, the gathered Gnostics erupt in chaos. As the sky gradually darkened, a bright streak suddenly appeared. Something was breaking through the atmosphere. It was the goddess Ihwa's command, warriors of the tribe. Go and bring it back intact. Yes. The warriors of the Gnostics immediately mounted their steeds, merging their spirits with the horses through the braided connections, and galloped away. Moya felt invigorated. She had a sense that the goddess Ihwa's command was related to that object. And with this feeling, she knew she was right. As the spiritual leader of the Gnostics, she could feel the presence of the goddess Ihwa in a profound way. This was also the root of the misunderstanding between the Gnostics and the sky people. The sky people believed that the Gnostics were too backward, clinging to the idea of gods, akin to the primitive tribal era of humanity, reflecting ignorance. They thought that by establishing schools and educating them, they could solve this problem. Then, they hastily moved to relocate them. However, only the Gnostics understood. The goddess Ihwa truly existed and was the very soul of the Gnostics. It was humanity's stubbornness and arrogance that made them unwilling to delve deeper into understanding. Chapter 274, Winged Beasts? A matter of one punch. In space, Fong Jing quietly observed the Pandora planet from orbit. This planet was strikingly similar to Earth, covered in a deep blue hue, mixed with white clouds and vast land. Unlike Earth, this land was filled with lush vegetation, making it even greener. Behind it loomed a giant gas giant, Polyphemus. Pandora was a moon of this massive gas planet. The intelligence system detected numerous signals and responded by concealing the craft's traces. The other side had countermeasures, so planetary scanning was paused. Having reached orbit, they were ready for orbital drop at any moment. Fong Jing floated silently in orbit, gazing at the Earth-like Pandora and the immense Polyphemus behind it, his spirit shaken. What a combination this was, with the giant cyclone on the gas giant being nearly the same size as Pandora. Just looking at it was breathtaking. After quietly admiring it for a while, Fong Jing took a deep breath. This was a treasure of the universe. No matter how many times he saw it, he would always feel awe. Since he was ready, it was time to land. The best position had been selected, far from human bases, and he was slowing down to prepare for the descent. This was Fong Jing's first orbital drop. Although he had simulated it countless times in virtual reality, the practical operation was always memorable. As his altitude gradually decreased, he was immediately captured by Pandora's gravity, and his descent speed began to increase slowly. Upon reaching a certain velocity, he was about to experience atmospheric friction. Bang! As the moment of re-entry into the atmosphere approached, a blazing light rapidly enveloped the surroundings of the mecha. At that moment, Fong Jing resembled a shooting star. A bright flame suddenly flickered in the dark night sky above the planet. The fire grew larger and closer to the ground. While decelerating, it was expected that the speed reduction would be completed before reaching the surface. The entire aerial drop mission did not require any control from Fong Jing. The onboard intelligence system took over the entire process. Finally, above a mountain gorge, Fang Jing completed the deceleration and gently landed on the ground using the tail thrusters. Surrounding him were dense clusters of trees, and he landed next to a giant mushroom. As his legs touched the ground, the enormous mushroom suddenly illuminated with a ghostly blue glow in the night, radiating in circles, creating an extraordinarily beautiful sight. This was the planet, a miraculous place of life, where the stunning creatures were the most precious treasure. Of course, the superconducting ore was also quite valuable. The assistant reminded him that during the descent, the intelligence system had already scanned the Gnostics gathering area and the human mining regions. At that moment, the intelligent assistant suddenly issued a notification. Simultaneously, a map of the surveyed locations appeared in front of Fang Jing. His position was oddly situated between a human base in the Avatar world and the Gnostics gathering area. Therefore, Fang Jing had no other choice but to decisively head towards the Gnostics gathering area. However, the path was incredibly difficult to traverse. Fang Jing rolled his eyes and pushed aside the dense vines obstructing his view. Can't walk? Then let's fly. Flight mode activated. With a quick run and jump. As Fang Jing leaped into the air, the electromagnetic pulse thruster on his back emitted a ghostly blue light. He immediately soared to the treetops, flying straight toward the Gnostics gathering area. Why walk when I can fly? Here I come for the superconducting ore. Fang Jing was still quite far from the Gnostic settlement. Over 100 kilometers away, and even at full speed, it would take some time. However, as he flew over a bay, he rarely stopped to take in the view, because the scene before him was simply breathtaking. Above the mountain gorge, there were actually island-like formations floating in the air. They were genuinely suspended. Massive islands floated without any connection to the ground, remaining still in the sky. There was more than one such island. This area was densely packed with them. The sight left Fang Jing momentarily stunned. The floating islands were spectacular and awe-inspiring. This planet was simply too beautiful. Although Fang Jing had seen Avatar and had some expectations of such places existing on Pandora, the reality was even more astonishing. However, the scenes seen in the movie and in reality are completely different. Flying over those massive floating islands, Fang Jing felt as if he had stepped into a dream. This was a beauty that was entirely different from Earth, exceeding human conventional perceptions. This place would definitely become an important attraction in the future. Fang Jing couldn't help but exclaim. Suddenly, from afar, above the island, there was a roar. Fang Jing snapped back to reality and cautiously turned his head to look into the distance. The mech had already locked onto the creature that had emitted the roar. Beyond human sight, among the trees on the island, there was a creature resembling a pterosaur, glaring fiercely at Fang Jing. This was a unique creature on Pandora, known as the Winged Beast, called Ikalan by the Gnostics. It seemed to consider Fang Jing, who had intruded into its territory, as prey. It doesn't want to eat me, does it? Fang Jing's mouth twitched, and then he decisively lowered his altitude. There was no need to argue with an animal. If it wanted to roar, let it roar. He decided to keep moving. Lowering his altitude and getting close to a ravine, Fang Jing continued along the predetermined route. However, just because Fang Jing didn't want to bully the small animal didn't mean the small animal didn't have ideas about him. At the moment Fang Jing turned to leave, the hunter, a green-winged beast hiding in the bushes, suddenly spread its massive wings and silently charged toward Fang Jing. It was going to hunt down the flying creature that dared to intrude into its territory to declare its presence, with silent wings. If it were an ordinary animal on Pandora, this would have been a perfect attack. However, it was facing a foe clad in the pinnacle of cosmic technology. Its reckless action was fully captured by the wave sensors surrounding the mech. A surge of electricity flowed through, and the signals, representing human intelligence, were quickly activated. Instantly, the intelligence system received the information, and an image of Fang Jing was rapidly established. The winged beast thought it was about to succeed. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 100 meters. It was about to pounce on its prey, but in those final few meters, Fang Jing directly handed control over to the intelligent assistant, and the engines on the back of the mech only tilted a few degrees. Just a few degrees. The fierce pounce of the winged beast missed entirely. Then, Fang Jing raised his hand and delivered a tail thrust punch, directly striking the winged beast on the head. Clang. The crisp sound echoed for a long time. Was it pleasant? If it sounds good, it's a good hit. This winged beast, daring to attack Fang Jing, was easily dealt with and fell directly into the ravine. In this day and age, who still relies on traditional neural signal reactions, this was shortwave quantum resonance transmission, controlled by artificial intelligence, with zero delay. Just as Fang Jing was feeling pleased with himself, in the distance, within the ravine, Gnostics warriors riding on warhorses, rushing towards Fang Jing, witnessed the entire process. Everyone swallowed hard, alert and astonished. In the sky, a figure resembling a metal giant had just knocked down a winged beast with a single punch. Chapter 275. The warriors of the Nahui tribe never expected to witness such a scene. Horses traversed the flatlands of the valley, following the trail of fire in the sky, searching for the object indicated by the goddess Ai Hua. However, their speed was too slow. They couldn't keep up on horseback, as they had to pass through an area populated by winged beasts and feared intruding into their territory. Riding was their only option. Fortunately, the daughter of the chieftain, Nightalai, was also among the warriors. The floating cattails representing the goddess Ai Hua were guiding them in the right direction. Then, they witnessed a shocking sight. In the sky, a mech resembling a sky dweller stood with its back to the winged beasts. Calmly, it sidestepped an attack from the beasts and effortlessly swatted one down to the ground with a casual lift of its hand. The power and reflexes displayed were unlike anything Night Ally had ever seen. Even at the school for sky dwellers she had attended, the mech there didn't react this quickly. Who was this? A new sky dweller? As the Naue people marveled at the scene, the snowy white cattails in the sky took the initiative and drifted towards Fong Jing's location. They circled around him a few times before vanishing without a trace. Below, the Naue people began to realize that the goddess AI Huazwa was connected to this mysterious figure. At the same time, a warning sounded. Beep, beep, beep. Detection of unknown electrical signals approaching, activating defense protocols. Fong Jing, having defeated a circle of winged beasts, suddenly startled at the system alert. He quickly spun around, using the mech's optical system to scan the area. Soon, he locked onto the Naue people in the distance. The electrical signal disappeared, and he detected a humanoid unknown entity 432 meters away, on horseback, preliminarily identified as Naue tribe members. At this moment, the intelligence system eliminated the interference from the earlier signal and resumed scanning. Naue tribe. Fong Jing was now able to see them clearly. The Naue people, with their blue exterior and whips connected by neural links, rode tall horses, wielding various cold weapons. Let's go take a look. The two sides faced each other for a few minutes. Fong Jing, feeling confident, took the initiative, gradually increasing thrust from the tail and flying towards them. As he was about to reach the top of their heads, he gently descended to the ground, standing at nearly 8 meters tall in the mech. He faced the group of horseback Naue, appearing as a steel giant that they could only look up at. Suddenly, Night Ally and the group spoke a few words. Fong Jing was taken aback. He couldn't understand at all. He shifted his focus to the artificial intelligence for help. The result was unknown language, insufficient data, unable to translate. Does anyone here speak English? Fong Jing felt helpless. Communication was impossible without resorting to English. He remembered that some Naue people had attended schools established by the inhabitants of another world. Fong Jing's words in Chinese were instantly transformed into English by artificial intelligence. Are you a sky person? Hearing his question, Neytiri furrowed her brows in confusion. The other Gnostics also tightened their grips on their weapons, becoming alert. The reason for their caution instead of immediate attack was that they were not foolish. The other party had clearly started speaking another language. Yet it was immediately followed by English, which was obviously not the same. I suppose so. What brings you to seek me? Fong Jing nodded slightly. Sky person is the term the Gnostics use for humans. We have come here at the behest of Goddess Iwa. Neytiri's confusion deepened upon hearing Fong Jing's explanation. Why would Goddess Iwa react to sky people? They had been present for a long time, yet she had never responded to them. This was the first time. Goddess Iwa. Fong Jing also frowned, feeling perplexed. Our leader wishes to invite you to our settlement. Although Neytiri was puzzled about why Goddess Iwa would make such a choice, she still followed the directive and invited Fong Jing. Of course, Fong Jing shrugged, finding it quite agreeable. He felt no fear, on Pandora, aside from humans. The Gnostics did not pose a threat to him. My name is Neytiri. May I ask your name? Fong Jing. Your name is truly unique. Perhaps due to the language barrier, Neytiri found Fong Jing's name quite difficult to pronounce. Although Fong Jing claimed to be human, Neytiri felt something was off. It was strange. None of the humans she had encountered before were like this. It did not take long to reach the ancient tree of the Gnostics. When Fong Jing appeared in the gathering place wearing a pitch-black steel exosuit, he instantly attracted everyone's attention. The two leaders of the tribe had been waiting here for a long time. Moya, dressed in red ceremonial attire, slowly walked to the front of the group, her gaze unwaveringly fixed on Fong Jing. Around them, the warriors of the camp stood alert with their weapons raised. Everyone stand down, lower your weapons. Moya fixed her eyes on Fong Jing, raising her right hand sharply and issuing a serious command. This is a guest invited by Goddess Iwa. Do not be disrespectful. The surrounding warriors, obeying their spiritual leader Moya, immediately lowered their weapons and slowly dispersed. The few who had been leading Fong Jing also put down their weapons and blended into the crowd. Now, a large group of blue-skinned Gnostics surrounded Fong Jing from a distance, curiously observing him. Neytiri walked slowly to her mother Moya's side and whispered a few words in her ear. After listening, Moya nodded slowly, her gaze softening as she looked at Fong Jing. Fong Ziyin, I am Moya. Hello Moya. Facing the crowd's scrutiny, Fong Jing felt no fear. He was merely curious as to why Goddess Iwa had called for him. Just then, the tall, ancient tree's dense branches and leaves suddenly stirred without any wind, making a rustling sound. From the gaps in the trees, a dense mass of bulrushes floated out, as if to cover the sky. A faint and gentle light illuminated the bulrushes, which then drifted directly towards Fong Jing. The bulrushes had no attacking capabilities. They simply swirled slowly around him. The soft tendrils of the bulrushes occasionally brushed against the surface of the exoskeleton, as if inviting Fong Jing inside the machine to come out and meet them. The densely packed bulrushes, glowing softly, spun around Fong Jing like a tornado, creating a scene that was so beautiful it felt dreamlike. The surrounding members of the Naue tribe were stunned. They had completely lowered their guard. At this moment, all they felt was confusion. What kind of person could receive such attention from the goddess? At that moment, Fong Jing, attracted by the beautifully floating bulrushes, suddenly noticed that the intelligence system had received a message. Indeed, These floating bulrushes were here to convey information. Moreover, the message had been delivered directly to the intelligence system. The information had been logged with no issues and was being opened, with the content as follows. Distant friend, please come out to meet. You are very different from those humans who only know how to mine. I offer you my friendship. This message was directly conveyed to Feng Jing by the goddess. She wanted him to come out and meet, to offer friendship. Feng Jing hesitated for a few seconds. It was during this hesitation that the bulrushes that had been surrounding him suddenly vanished. The goddess's intention was simple. She wanted to see Feng Jing's true form, without the isolation of the exoskeleton. This was her thought. As for whether to meet or not, the choice was in Feng Jing's hands. Why not meet? Feng Jing immediately realized. Why not? Besides the exoskeleton, he had another layer of close-fitting armor. Moreover, once he exited the cabin, the intelligence system would take over the exoskeleton, and he could control it through the brain-machine interface. The firepower was still in his hands. As for the goddess's direct targeting, Feng Jing simply chuckled and shook his head. Did he really have to worry about these Naui tribesmen? No offense, but even without the exoskeleton, just wearing the close-fitting armor, he was not someone these armed with cold weapons could take on. The weapons he possessed were the pinnacle of several worlds. He could take on the entire Naui tribe by himself. Assistant, send a signal, I will meet. He instructed the intelligence system to attempt to send a response to the origin of the message. To his surprise, the other party actually received it. The goddess was unexpectedly active. Then, amidst the astonished expressions of the surrounding Naui people, the dark exoskeleton slowly opened at the chest. Feng Jing stepped out from within. Compared to the Naui, humans were naturally smaller. However, with the mechanical exoskeleton clinging to his body and the semi-exposed biological armor underneath, Feng Jing exuded a rugged and powerful aura. Beneath the mechanical chest armor, dark bone-like supports were faintly visible. Half of a face, encased in steel, had a blank area covered with gray keratin. This close-fitting exoskeleton had perfectly merged with the biological armor, creating a seamless blend of biology and machinery. This was the confidence that Feng Jing had when stepping out of the advanced mech, facing the Nasics and the ethereal goddess of AI Hua. As Feng Jing emerged from the mech, the surrounding Nasics were stunned. They had seen sky people before, but never such a sky person. Feng Jing indeed had the features of a sky person, but his skin was more wheat-colored, and his exoskeleton was highly integrated with his biological armor. This created an illusion for the Nasics that these mechanical and strange skin-like bones were originally part of Feng Jing's body. Even more incredible to them was that this sky person could breathe directly on Pandora. Sky people usually had to wear oxygen masks. The choice of the goddess AI Hua was truly extraordinary. Muya could only attribute this to the goddess's wisdom. The Nasics warriors around were eager to engage. The sky person before them, with such a rugged appearance, was clearly not the scientific type they had encountered before. This was a true sky warrior. At the moment Feng Jing stepped out of the advanced mech, the ancient tree canopy, which had been still, began to rustle again. Suddenly, a root burst out from the ground. The root slowly emerged from the soil, moving very slowly. With a curious gaze, Feng Jing watched as it approached him. Of course, he wasn't idle. His left hand held an ion blade, ready to activate at any moment. If there was any hint of aggression, he would show them the power of the ion blade, which could reach temperatures of over 10,000 degrees. However, Feng Jing's weapon ultimately did not come into play. The slowly advancing root gently touched the biological armor beneath his exoskeleton. Upon contact, for some reason, Feng Jing felt the surrounding environment brighten, as if some joyful event had occurred in this world. It was as if the goddess AI Hua was pleased. Muya was the first to react. She raised her hands and muttered something mysterious before looking at Feng Jing with satisfaction. Gradually approaching him, Muya smiled and said, Mr. Feng Jing from afar, you have gained the recognition of the goddess AI Hua. She wishes to communicate with you. If possible, please go to the spirit tree, where you can share everything with the All-Mother, the goddess AI Hua. Muya had witnessed the goddess's reaction just now. Although Feng Jing was an outsider, in Pandora, any being recognized by the goddess AI Hua would be considered part of nature and would earn the respect of the Nasics. Of course, please lead the way. Feng Jing nodded gently. He returned to the advanced battle suit and, under Muya's guidance, headed toward the spirit tree. At the same time, he vaguely understood the meaning of the goddess Ihua. In the human world, on Earth, the goddess is merely an object shaped by humanity's ethereal spiritual aspirations. However, on the planet Pandora, the goddess Ihua is a real existence. Of course, if we delve deeper, the goddess Ihua is not a god in the true sense. She is a treasure formed by this unique planet, Pandora. High-quality superconducting ores are widely found underground on Pandora. The global flora grows atop these superconducting ores, interconnected through the properties of the ores, ultimately forming the all-encompassing Mother Ihua of this planet. Rather than being a deity, Ihua is more like a naturally formed plant intelligence. Through the underground superconducting ores and the plants rooted in the soil, she can easily grasp the information of the entire planet. She is the embodiment of Pandora's natural world. However, at the end of the day, she is still just a naturally born plant intelligence. She too seeks evolution and survival. She attempts to find a path for development among the humans who mine the ores, so she does not intervene much in their invasion, but quietly observes. However, she feels somewhat disappointed by humanity, as she has not found hope for further evolution among those miners. But today, A meteor streaking across the sky brought her an exciting sensation. Indeed, it was Fang Jing. The reason for her excitement was the advanced biotechnology contained in the biological exosuit. Aihua sensed hope for her evolution through the biological exosuit that Fang Jing carried. Therefore, she decided to take the initiative and let the Navi tribe seek her hope. Now, having come into contact with the biological exosuit, she perceives it in detail. This is indeed her hope, just from sensing it. She knows that the technology used in this biological exosuit contains what she needs. Moreover, she keenly perceives that Fang Jing is not part of the first group of humans. He seems to have come more discreetly compared to the others. Therefore, after careful consideration, she decided to invite Fang Jing for a detailed discussion. If she could pay a price to gain his technological support, it would be worth it, no matter what. This is her only chance for continued evolution. Otherwise, could she really rely on those miners? Yes, although they currently do not pose a significant threat to her, if this situation continues, not only would she not evolve, but she might truly cease to exist. Chapter 277. This is a necessary cost. Fang Jing did not expect such a dramatic turn of events. Connecting the dots, he realized that Aihua was interested in his biological exosuit, which gave him a rough idea of her intentions. She was interested in biotechnology. What is the big deal? Fang Jing had already thought it through. The exchange condition would be superconducting ores. He was different from those miners rushing in. They were invading the resources of the goddess Aihua, which was an invasion. What Fang Jing was doing was a trade. Technology for ores, a win-win situation, you know? It's a mutually agreeable matter, unlike direct robbery. Thinking of this, Fang Jing couldn't help but quicken his pace. As long as he reached an agreement with Aihua, the superconducting ore would be within easy reach. Why should he be like the people here, struggling and trying to persuade the Gnostics to relocate? Only to end up personally taking action? At that time, if Fang Jing wanted to mine, he could simply declare it was the will of the goddess Aihua. Who would dare to oppose? Moreover, why bother mining the or beneath the Gnostics' land? This is the goddess Aihua, the embodiment of the will of the Pandora plants. Surely, they know where superconducting ore is plentiful? As for those in this world who dare to seize the ore promised by Aihua, they would have to face the consequences. However, that is a matter for another time. Fang Jing followed Muya, with a large number of Gnostics gathering behind. A group of them arrived beneath the spirit tree. The spirit tree is the place where the souls of the Gnostics return to the all-powerful mother Aihua after death. It is a sacred ground, the most solemn place for the Gnostics. The tree, not too tall, has dazzling branches adorned with vibrant pink tendrils, radiating a sense of warmth and gentleness. From the perspective of Fang Jing, a human, it is hard to imagine that this is the final resting place for the Gnostics. Perhaps this is the reason for the communication gap between the Gnostics and humans. Their understanding of death is completely different. For the Gnostics, death is merely a return of the spirit to the embrace of the goddess Aihua. Of course, this refers to those who die a natural death. The question remains whether those killed by invading humans count as such. Fang Jing, go ahead. The goddess Aihua is waiting for you. At the circular entrance of the spirit tree, Muya stopped, smiling and nodding at Fang Jing, urging him to enter quickly. Fang Jing responded and stepped forward. Upon entering beneath the spirit tree, the pink tendrils on the branches began to sway gently without wind, sparkling intermittently with glimmers of light. Then, to the astonishment of Fang Jing and all the Gnostics, countless glowing cattails appeared before them, slowly gathering in the air. Ultimately, they formed the image of a Gnostics. With a tall figure, limbs, torso, tail, face, ears, and braids, the glowing cattails gradually spread apart, revealing a Gnostics bathed in light. He radiated a soft, pure white glow, exuding an extraordinary sanctity. This is the goddess Aihua, the all-powerful mother of Pandora, the embodiment of plant wisdom, the all-powerful mother above. As the spirit tree awakened the space beyond, the Gnostics began to kneel in reverence, and Muya looked on in excitement at those bowing on the ground. This was the first time the Gnostics had seen the all-powerful mother reveal her true form. Buzzing, the radiant Aihua waved gently at Muya, her ethereal voice resonating clearly from all directions. You may withdraw. Yes, all-powerful mother. Muya responded, slowly standing up and directing all the gathered Gnostics to leave. Finally, only Fang Jing and Aihua remained in this place. How should I address you? Fang Jing expressed the necessary respect to Aihua while curiously observing her appearance. Transforming into the likeness of the Gnostics people indicates a strong fondness for them. Of course, she is certainly not one of the Gnostics here, on such a vast planet. There must be more than one place with Gnostics. The affection must be for the Gnostics as a whole, as they are the original intelligent species of Pandora. They like to call me Aihua, radiating a gentle glow. Aihua quietly gazed into the distance at the Gnostics, ensuring they were far away before slowly turning back to Fang Jing and continuing. You can just call me Aihua. All right, Lady Aihua. Fang Jing felt that directly calling her by name was somewhat disrespectful, so he referred to her as Lady, following Gnostics tradition. This was the highest respect he could show. It was the greatest respect for a planet and for an entity that could bring tangible benefits to the universe. Hee, you are quite interesting. The glowing Aihua gently nodded, accepting the title. So, Lady Aihua, may I ask what your invitation to this place means? Having settled the issue of address, Fang Jing inquired about the purpose. You, although of the same species as those sky people, have technology that is more advanced and diverse. The gentle light being slowly stepped in front of Fang Jing, circling around him twice, then extended her delicate hand to gently touch the surface of Fang Jing's mecha. You are not from the same group as them, right? Different origins, or perhaps adversaries. We indeed do not come from the same place. Fang Jing slightly shook his head. A faint smile appeared in his heart. See, even a plant intelligence from the same planet does not dare to guess too far-fetched. Now he somewhat understood the shock of those who knew their true identities. That was real shock, genuinely absurd. Even beings like Ai Hua, who had existed for countless years and were nearly divine, did not dare to guess so absurdly. Fang Jing did not directly tell Lady Ai Hua about his origins, but instead asked, Lady Ai Hua, do you know the origins of those miners? They come from a solar system 43 light-years away from Earth. Ai Hua simply replied in a calm tone. You know this so clearly. Now it was Fang Jing's turn to be shocked. Those humans taught one of my children, a Gnostics, which included their language and some knowledge. Ai Hua noticed Fang Jing's surprise and explained in a flat voice. Additionally, these humans are very arrogant. Their communication waves are always exposed and unrefined. Over the years, I have almost gathered all the information. Hiss, Fang Jing suddenly gasped, understanding and nodding slightly. Indeed, the humans here would never think that all the surrounding plants are, in fact, Ai Hua's tendrils. However, knowing this made Fang Jing even more puzzled. Since Ai Hua refers to the Gnostics as one of her children, why does she watch them being driven away and killed by those who mine? It is a helpless attempt. It has been countless years since my birth, spanning billions of years. The goddess Ai Hua perceived Fang Jing's thoughts and calmly said, all the plants on Pandora are seeking evolution. We continually cultivate various organisms, ultimately breeding the intelligent Gnostics, hoping they would assist in our successful evolution. However, their development has stagnated for too long. At this moment, humans appeared, bringing alien genes that became a catalyst for our intense evolution. We haven't witnessed such drastic changes in a long time. In this process, the death of plants and the extinction of species are inevitable. The Gnostics do not exist solely in this place. With a calm tone, the goddess Ai Hua uttered chilling words. Everything is for evolution. This is a necessary cost. Chapter 278. Ai Hua's appeal. The voice of the goddess Ai Hua was peculiar, gentle yet chilling. It was as if a true deity was overlooking the entire land. She cast her gaze across the entire Pandora planet, indifferent to the extinction of a single Gnostics tribe or certain species on Pandora. Or rather, it was not indifference, but an absolute rational perspective, viewing everything as a necessary cost for evolution. In fact, Ai Hua's attitude towards the human invaders was also positive. She did not care about the human invasion. Initially, the plants of Pandora were quite fearful of humans, as their reckless mining led to widespread land abandonment and death. However, as time progressed, the plants gradually calmed down. Human mining was very limited, generally only targeting high-purity superconducting ores, while ignoring those with many underground impurities. More importantly, humans mined too slowly. At this rate, it would take tens of thousands of years to cause devastating extraction of the superconducting content on Pandora. Therefore, compared to the risks, the benefits they brought were greater. New plants. Humans introduced some plants that were completely different species with entirely different genes from those on Pandora. These were the benefits. Any plant cultivated on Pandora, regardless of its origin, would ultimately become part of Ai Hua, because the goddess Ai Hua is the collective intelligence of the plants on Pandora. And clearly, the humans in this world have not yet grasped plant intelligence nor weaponized plants. Thus, by cultivating these plants, they are actually assisting Ai Hua. This is also the reason for Ai Hua's ambiguous attitude. It is why she stated that during this period, the decline of plants and the extinction of species are inevitable. This is a necessary cost. Fang Jing was momentarily shocked by Ai Hua's absolute rationality. However, what astonished him even more was that he had just thought of this matter in his heart. So why could the goddess Ai Hua see through him? Could it be mind reading? It's not the mind reading from your works, but your electrical signals. Just as Fang Jing was once again puzzled in his heart, the goddess Ai Hua explained to Dundut, I have observed you humans for a long time. I can interpret what you think just by capturing electrical signals. Hiss. The goddess Ai Hua's explanation made Fang Jing take a deep breath. Wow, this is truly astonishing. In front of her, he felt as if he were an unprotected white sheet of paper. She could see right through him at a glance. However, Fang Jing wasn't too worried. While she could see through him, influencing him was another matter entirely. The brain interface chip has, among other functions, the role of protecting the brain. While Ai Hua could see through him, she couldn't invade his consciousness. After all, in the original story, the Gnostics needed to connect with the sacred tree through neural links just to communicate with her. Taking a deep breath, Fang Jing didn't intend to say too much to her, and instead asked Ai Hua seriously, since you know where humans come from, do you have an understanding of the entire universe? Initially, I only had some concepts, but after humans arrived, I learned quite a bit from those scientists. The pure white light being Ai Hua slowly nodded. That's good. As I mentioned earlier, we are not of the same kind as the humans here. Fang Jing slowly raised his head, a smirk on his lips, and said proudly, because we come from other universes. Every time Fang Jing spoke of his origins, no matter who he was speaking to, they would always be shocked. Fang Jing had grown accustomed to it. However, this time, after he explained his background, he cast an expectant gaze at the goddess Ai Hua. He was genuinely curious about how the ever-gentle and rational Ai Hua who sounded like a true deity, would react to this news. It turned out that the plant intelligence was not a cold, emotionless biological computer AI. The goddess AI Hua clearly exhibited common biological emotions. Upon learning about Fang Jing's origins, an extremely interested expression unexpectedly appeared on her otherwise unchanged face. At the same time, her tone became filled with anticipation and faint excitement. It seemed that the previously calm goddess AI Hua hadn't encountered anything surprising until now. What are your demands? The image formed by the pure white light flashed intensely. And then the goddess AI Hua eagerly asked Fang Jing. We need superconducting minerals from Pandora. Fang Jing got straight to the point. The intense mining would disrupt the connection of the plants on Pandora. This time, the goddess AI Hua hesitated. She wasn't foolish. Allowing the humans here to mine was acceptable because they might not finish even after tens of thousands of years. But the forces behind Fang Jing were another story. Having crossed parallel universes, who knew how they would mine? What if they exhausted the resources in just a few months? Her existence now largely depended on the superconducting minerals underground. We won't mine directly, please rest assured, goddess AI Hua. Fang Jing noticed her concerns and smiled faintly, explaining. Our scientists and superconductive or will undoubtedly be equally excited about your presence. We will first help you complete your evolution, in exchange for the mining rights on Pandora. While it is said that we are assisting the goddess AI Hua in her evolution, it is essentially a study of her. To research such a being, a truly naturally occurring plant intelligence that governs the entire planet's flora, would drive the biologists of Project 237 absolutely mad. Given this, we are counting on you. The pure white goddess AI Hua quietly observed Fang Jing, seemingly sensing something, along with Fang Jing's inquiry about the mining rights. She had a much better perception of Fang Jing's faction than those humans still mining on the planet. This was a unique opportunity, one worth pursuing. However, before that, I would like to request a sample from the goddess AI Hua, so I can report back. Fang Jing politely inquired. The goddess, composed of pure white light, responded, and her figure gradually faded away. At the same time, a slight tremor suddenly came from the ground in the distance. A segment of tree root slowly emerged from the earth, and soon a pitch-black ore was wrapped by the root and gently handed to Fang Jing. The ore was so dark that when the root released it, it surprisingly floated directly onto the mechanical hand of Fang Jing's battle armor. Seeing this, Fang Jing was overjoyed. This was high-purity superconductive ore, naturally occurring room-temperature superconductive ore. Just this piece could leave the material scientists of this universe and the 9 provinces dumbfounded. What is this? Room-temperature superconductors can occur naturally? You must be joking. Of course, after the initial shock, it would lead to a boom in materials science. However, before the materials scientists were bewildered, Fang Jing glanced at the vanishing figure of the pure white light being, pondering to himself. Before the materials scientists were baffled, the biologists had already gone mad. Not just the biologists, but that egg-headed Horus would probably lose his mind too. Plant Intelligence Collective, the all-powerful mother of nature. The research value here was immense. Chapter 279. Is there a refresh point for aliens? The light being that transformed from the goddess AI Hua had dissipated. But Fang Jing knew that this did not mean she had left. She was the all-powerful mother, the embodiment of the collective wisdom of the plant beings on Pandora. And on Pandora, she was essentially omnipresent. The earlier manifestation was merely a sign of respect towards Fang Jing. After all, it would be strange to have Fang Jing talking to the air, wouldn't it? Just imagine Fang Jing, startled and incredulous, with a rich expression on his face while talking to empty space. Wouldn't that look insane? Goddess, I will immediately leave the tribe of the Nawe and find a place to return. Fang Jing softly informed the spiritual tree, then activated the thrusters on his back and turned to leave. With the ore in hand, he could now open the spatial gate. This time, the harvest would be substantial. Not only are there intelligent plant beings to study, but there are also superconducting ores on the entire planet available for extraction. Unlike the humans of this universe, they are not invaders of this planet. They have received permission from the planet's master. No one should even think about taking their ores. Far away from the sacred tree, Fang Jing found a relatively safe canyon and directly burrowed in. Then, he activated that machine with his consciousness. In an instant, he vanished from the spot. Once he disappeared, the dense foliage around began to sway continuously. A glowing cattail flew by, and the wind blew fiercely, causing the plants to rustle incessantly. This change seemed to express the shock felt by some presence. Indeed, Fang Jing had vanished from the planet in an instant. AI Hua felt this even more profoundly. Through the perception of nearby plants, all sensory organs, electric waves, infrared, smells, and touch, clearly informed her that he was gone. He had vanished into thin air. All previous doubts and disbelief had completely dissipated. As expected, a unique skill can conquer all. No intelligent being directly believes in the claims of parallel universes. However, if you perform a real-life magic trick in front of them, their attitude changes. Skepticism turns into belief. Especially for the goddess AI Hua, her perspective is not just visual, it's all-encompassing. Even from a magnetic field standpoint, there was not a trace of Fang Jing to be found. Such an extraordinary event is a profound shock to every intelligent being. It's like suddenly encountering a ghost when you turn around. The feeling is the same. However, following the trembling of the trees, the area where Fang Jing had vanished suddenly felt as if it had entered a dream. Vivid flowers sprouted suddenly from the soil, unfolding their buds. Various hues of light radiated through the thickets, illuminating the area in dazzling colors. The surroundings seemed to have entered a spring akin to that of Pandora. Clearly, upon realizing that Feng Jing was telling the truth, AI Hua saw hope for her own evolution, which greatly uplifted her spirits. The sudden arrival of spring was the best proof of this. We can finally break free from our dependence on superconducting ores. With biotechnology, we can continue to evolve. A calm voice in Chinese drifted over, vibrating from a distant trumpet-shaped flower. This was extremely authentic Chinese. Evidently, AI Hua's abilities surpassed Feng Jing's imagination. While chatting with Feng Jing, she was weaving electrical signals and using complex plant root systems to simulate human computing, hacking into the human mining base and learning the Earth language. The entire process took only a few seconds, easy for AI Hua. In fact, if not for her prior need for humans to bring changes to Pandora, eliminating these invading humans would have been a mere thought for her. The grass that sprays sulfuric acid can directly break through 10 meters of concrete overnight, covering the entire human base effortlessly. For her, controlling the plants of the entire planet is a piece of cake. If she wants to eliminate some invaders, there are countless methods at her disposal. You just need to wear an oxygen mask? Are you willing to sacrifice your skin? Parasites, corrosive gases, and various lethal agents targeting humans. These are just matters of desire and intent. Ultimately, it comes down to necessary sacrifices made for evolution. Whether in response to current human invasions or the extinction of a certain indigenous species, she does not care. In this universe, in the disinfection chamber number 5, the moment Feng Jing's advanced combat armor appeared, the intelligent assistant immediately displayed that the data was connected. Soon after, Feng Jing's vision went dark, and he quickly lost consciousness. The very experienced Zhou Yuan didn't even bother to open the armor's hatch. Considering the situation, the armor was equipped with medical scanning devices. The medical equipment indicated that Feng Jing was in good health. Was this the information needed to open the space portal? After confirming the data, Zhou Yuan felt relieved and said to the serious-looking Li Tianming beside him, "It seems that the difficulty of this world shouldn't be too high." "That is hard to say." Li Tianming chuckled and then patted the captain on the shoulder. "Zhou, let us get to work." "Okay, let us start the disinfection." Zhou Yuan shrugged. As for Feng Jing, he would naturally be sent to the rest area after the disinfection was completed. Additionally, the strange black mineral in his hand had already been sent to the analysis room. Meanwhile, while everyone was busy, Feng Jing had already entered that familiar dark space. In this space, 3 red dots on a machine were aligned in a straight line, and as soon as Feng Jing arrived, a change occurred. At the end of the line, a small white dot appeared, equal in size. At the same time, beside the third red dot representing the avatar world, another small white dot emerged. It was yet another familiar configuration of one large and one small dot. Information about 2 new worlds. Feng Jing took a deep breath and decisively approached the small white dot first. He realized that the small white dot did not represent a weaker world, but rather one with easier completion conditions. At least, it was relatively easier to open the space portal. In an instant, a scene appeared in Feng Jing's mind. The scene was somewhat familiar. It depicted a huge room filled with quantum computers. Then, as Feng Jing observed thoughtfully, the quantum computers filling the room began to shrink, eventually becoming the size of a suitcase. Feng Jing understood immediately. This was about enhancing the computational power in this universe. Soon after, the image shattered. Without hesitation, Feng Jing moved to approach the large white dot. Another scene unfolded, but this time, it was actually Earth? No, it wasn't just Earth. The image expanded to encompass the entire solar system, and then even included Alpha Centauri, the nearest star system to the solar system. Then, the scene instantly collapsed. Now, Feng Jing was puzzled. What did this mean? It is understandable to shrink the size of quantum computers in this universe, but what does that big white light mean? Does it show the solar system and the Alpha Centauri star system? How is this world related to the Alpha Centauri star system? There seem to be too many related works to count on fingers. Alpha Centauri is a refresh point for aliens from parallel universes. Chapter 280, Alpha Centauri. Truly a treasure land. In this universe, in the disinfection room number 5, Feng Jing woke up in confusion. What does this hint even mean? He felt like his brain was insufficient and needed to rely on an external brain. He woke up from the resting pod in the disinfection room, where everyone was still busy with disinfection. The disinfection methods used in the current disinfection room are quite complex. First, the staff wear protective suits and spray a newly developed disinfectant. The engineers use a special version of the disinfectant designed for this universe. It can be said that any virus would hardly escape the grasp of this disinfectant. Then, the staff exit for separate disinfection. Just know that the disinfection room will activate a strong magnetic field and high temperatures in the tens of millions of degrees to burn everything that resists. As for the staff, they conduct a full genomic mass spectrometry analysis to ensure that nothing is missed. However, the current full genomic mass spectrometry analysis has become very simple. Lying in the equipment, it is resolved in seconds. Additionally, there are more than a dozen steps, but the entire process does not take much time. However, everyone must be checked. Feng Jing is no exception. Safety issues must be handled with utmost rigor and cannot afford any mistakes. Let us head to the command room. Zhu Lao and the others are analyzing the new world. When Feng Jing woke up and completed his checks with no issues, he was taken by Zhou Yuan to the command room. At this time, in the command room, A large screen was already playing Avatar. Everyone in the command room had a document in hand, carefully passing it around. Around them, many experts and scholars were engrossed in frantically organizing documents. Helios was seriously watching the movie while reviewing the materials. At one point, he even smiled foolishly at an exciting scene, which made Fong Jing feel particularly uncomfortable. It can be said that Helios was definitely the most eye-catching person in the command room at that moment. However, Fong Jing could understand, after all, AI Hua's existence is simply a biological miracle. No, she is the very definition of a miracle. In the world of Avatar, the robot controlled by Zhu Lao looked up, smiled, nodded at Fong Jing, and waved for him to come over. Zhu Lao, should we directly open the spatial gate next? Fong Jing asked curiously while sitting opposite Zhu Lao. Yes, but we need to analyze things on our side first, Zhu Lao replied, gesturing for Fong Jing not to rush. And then waved his hand. Between the two, a holographic projection displayed the map of Pandora. Now, with the integration of intelligent systems, there's no need for much explanation when Fong Jing returns. The command center's explanations are directly handled by the intelligent assistant, which saves Fong Jing a lot of work. As for determining the world of Avatar, once the mission video is adjusted, it's hard not to recognize the appearance of the Nausicaa. Pandora holds significant research value for us. Zhu Lao smiled faintly. Your conversation with AI Hua surprised us beyond our plans. However, you did a great job. This is what Zhu Lao appreciates the most. Even outside the mission parameters, Fong Jing can ensure his own safety. Rest assured, Zhu Lao, we guarantee such mistakes will not happen again. At this moment, a scholar from the planning department suddenly looked up, eager to swear an oath. They had planned Avatar, but never expected Fong Jing to have such a miraculous start. Right from the beginning, he connected with the goddess AI Hua of Pandora. A mistake, a major mistake. In the future, their planning team must dare to think boldly. Well, such unexpected events are inevitable. Xiao Fong, let's have a good talk about the new world next. In the command center, Fong Jing recounted the hints he had just seen. The many scholars in the room paused for a moment, falling into deep thought. The hints from the two worlds, one of which is quite straightforward, while the other is a bit abstract. Starting from Earth, expanding gradually to the solar system, and then to the Alpha Centauri star system. What does this mean? The conditions for entering the world generally appear in this universe. So Zhao Guangyao raised an eyebrow and tentatively asked, does this mean our influence is to expand to Alpha Centauri? There is a possibility. In the distance, astrophysicist Zhou Ximin stroked his chin and nodded seriously. Expanding from Earth, gradually stepping into the solar system, becoming a civilization within the star system, and then continuing to expand further to become a star system civilization. This explanation makes complete sense. It seems to be the only way. The probability given by the assistant is 90. Zhu Lao glanced over, nodded in agreement, then curiously asked, actually, I'm more curious about what this world is. To require this universe to expand its influence to Alpha Centauri, could this universe be simple? To become a star system civilization, achieving light speed for spacecraft is certainly a must. And reaching light speed for spacecraft implies a lot of things. Materials, energy, weapons. What kind of world requires this universe to meet such conditions? Analyzing the hint, it refers to the solar system and Alpha Centauri star system, which clearly indicates some connection between these two star systems in that world, and they are likely the protagonists of the story. Zhou Ximin furrowed his brow, biting his back molar, his tone somewhat serious and even heavy. The people in the command center immediately thought of the three-body problem, causing their breathing to quicken. If it really is the three-body problem, that world is too complex, and they must proceed cautiously, with utmost care. Otherwise, if we're not careful, we might just be hunted down to this universe. At this moment, Zhou Ximin noticed that everyone looked a bit tense, thinking they understood his meaning. He nodded heavily, and then said something that left others dumbfounded. So, if it really is that world, we must act quickly and directly locate all the Transformers on Earth. Wait, we were guessing about the three-body problem, but you're talking about Transformers? The scholars around Zhou Ximin couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. It turns out, both sides were on different wavelengths. What was that tense atmosphere all about? Hey, I was guessing Transformers too, Zhou Ximin said, confused. His son happened to be watching Transformers recently, and Cybertron is in the Alpha Centauri system, so it was a coincidence, right? The people around waved their hands and collectively shushed him. After all this, it turned out that he thought he understood, and he thought he wanted him to understand. What a big misunderstanding. However, what Zhou Ximin proposed did have a lot of potential. This eased the mood among everyone. There are many works related to the Alpha Centauri system and the solar system. Who knows which one it could be? In any case, that big white point, which must expand the power of this universe to Alpha Centauri to enter, must be significant. Chapter 281. Charging in on this side of the universe, since it has been confirmed that it's the Avatar world, the plan was quickly formulated. We can cooperate with AI Hua, but her personality is too. Zhao Guangyao hesitated and shook his head in front of the disinfection room. Too rational. Although she does have some emotional responses, the threshold required is too high. This is definitely a self-generated artificial intelligence without any limitations. Xiao Zhao was right. The plan already stated that while cooperating, we must be cautious of AI Hua. Elder Zhu agreed with Zhao Guangyao's reminder and called up the document. Reading, we can use advanced biological technology to leave a backup in the gene bank during our transaction with AI Hua. After reading this section, those following, including Fong Jing, nodded. AI Hua, as a planned intelligence entity, is indeed too rational. To the extreme, it lacks humanity. It's best to be cautious of such an existence. If we can use genetic means to leave a backup within the other party's entity, that would be even better. At the same time, our assistant AI needs to settle in as soon as possible. Elder Zhu made a firm decision, stating, "We need to completely suppress AI Hua with the assistant." Elder Zhu. While the assistant's unit computing power is certainly higher than AI Hua's, the problem is that the total computing power is unknown. Zhao Guangyao shook his head. After all, AI Hua is a collective of all the planet's organisms. Although the unit computing power is destined to be lacking, the total computing power cannot be underestimated. No worries. We will increase the total computing power of the assistant on our side. In the initial phase of cooperation, this universe is not worried about AI Hua's invasion at all. The other party is a biological computer, while we are equipped with quantum computing and quantum communication. Do you think you can hack in with a quantum key? Without it, you can't do anything. Additionally, in response to potential situations, we have reinforced the brain-computer interfaces for all personnel. Zhao Guangyao nodded, and then talked about another matter. This issue was initially not a cause for concern. All combat personnel are connected to the brain-computer interface. What is the core of buffering data impact? It's to protect the brain. Therefore, this structure was originally designed with the mission of protecting the brain. This reinforcement is an enhancement of that protective function. Moreover, biological defense has also been upgraded to the highest standards and technologies. Well, AI Hua can simulate electrical signal invasions into computers as a biological computer. She might even simulate forced brain signals, which we must be cautious about. Zhu Lao agreed, and then glanced at Fang Jing. This mission deviated from the script. And Fang Jing indeed performed well, but there are still areas that need strengthening. All right, our team is ready. Let's proceed to the disinfection chamber. In the distance, Zhou Zhe walked over quickly, followed by Zhou Weirong. The team from Jiuzhou is also ready. In the disinfection chamber, Fang Jing turned around and nodded at everyone. Then, without hesitation, he entered the advanced combat armor, and his consciousness began to connect with the machine. With a flash, Fang Jing vanished from the spot. When he opened his eyes again, he had left that valley. However, upon opening his eyes, Fang Jing was stunned. The valley, which originally had few plants, was now blooming with flowers. As a gust of wind blew, the petals danced in the breeze. Even more astonishing to Fang Jing was that these flowers were a variety native to Earth. Weren't they roses? It seems the goddess AI Hua truly loves Earth plants. Or perhaps the changes they bring. Fang Jing made his way over, found a relatively flat area on the riverbank, and without hesitation, reached out to open a spatial portal. A pitch-black sphere instantly appeared on the flat ground. After doing this, Fang Jing turned around and shouted into the air, "Goddess AI Hua, we need an open space. Disperse the nearby plants." If this were happening at the base of Project 237, those watching would understand, thinking he was speaking to an assistant. However, from the perspective of an ordinary person in this universe, Fang Jing shouting into the air did seem a bit peculiar. Of course, this is Pandora. And the goddess AI Hua is omnipresent. In an instant, the plants densely growing on the riverbank began to wither in large patches. Not only withering, the plants continuously dehydrated, eventually turning to ashes and dissipating into nothingness. Just like that, the entire riverbank was completely cleared. Watching this scene, Fang Jing finally understood why the Gnostics hold AI Hua in such high regard. A thought can make flowers bloom, while another can lead to the demise of all things. Even if placed on Earth, it would take 1,000 years, no, 300 years. Even for ordinary people today, upon suddenly encountering this object, one must kneel before speaking. It is simply too mysterious. However, for Fang Jing, who is accustomed to the unusual, this only brings surprise. He is amazed by the control exhibited by AI Hua. After all, he is someone who has seen grand spectacles. The imagery of terraforming Mars is no less shocking than this, is it? The rapid growth species sweeping across thousands of miles and occupying land is even more spectacular. With the ground cleared, the reaction forces already assembled in the decontamination room, upon seeing the emergence of the spatial gate, immediately surged into action. The sound of the electromagnetic pulse engine, although not like gasoline, still possesses an alluring shriek. This sound is more stirring than that of a car engine. The flying armored vehicle, equipped with 4 engines, emitted dazzling blue light and plunged into the spatial gate the moment it lifted off the ground. As it burst through the spatial gate, the armored vehicle quickly spread out into a combat formation. All weapons were activated to protect the spatial gate and Fang Jing. Teams spread out, air defense forces deployed. While the second team had already surged in, the armored units entered in a single file and then dispersed in an instant. The territory they needed to defend was marked by the path the armored vehicles flew over. The engineering troops had already moved in to reinforce the foundation near the spatial gate. The aerial units were entering and designating the air defense identification zone, with radar operational at all times. Everything was proceeding in an orderly fashion. These assault troops had become so proficient that they could not be more skilled. They were incredibly professional. They not only had experience storming alien worlds, but had also engaged in close combat with alien armies and simulators. They had fought against dozens of alien species. This beach landing was a piece of cake. Wait, this is the Air Force. Why the heck is my aircraft suddenly gaining lift? The pilot of the forward reconnaissance flight suddenly became alert over the channel. Why is my plane climbing so much while I'm flying? I didn't adjust the engine thrust that aggressively. The marked area must be a superconducting or zone. Pay attention to control. The command officer Chung Yuan, in the command vehicle, let out a heavy sigh of relief amid his vigilance. He had thought they were about to engage in combat. It turned out they had just encountered superconducting or that gave him quite a scare. Chapter 282. Talks are beneficial. Very beneficial. In just 1 hour, right under Fong Jing's nose, the original riverbank had been expanded into a massive outdoor concrete platform. Various defensive weapons were piled up nearby. At the same time, the spatial gate began to slowly expand. It continued to expand until it reached its maximum extent before gradually coming to a halt. In the air, drones hovered, and a detection curtain enveloped the entire concrete area, including underground. The light curtain flickered at high frequency. This is an engineering technology, once implemented. No external material can invade.